Thank you. So the deal was, I asked the two of them, which one of you wants to lead us in the pledge? Councilmember Boyd has just arrived. And Kay points to Cole and says, he does. I said, great, then you get to give the prayer. Okay, are there any adjustments to tonight's agenda?
Not that I'm already noticed, two items that will be continued.
Okay, are they noted? Okay. Can you tell us what they are?
The first two community development issues.
Items A and B on section 9.
All right. Any other discussion on the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as written, noting that items 9A and B will be continued to today. Second.
We have a motion by Ben, second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I'm so hungry.
Dive in.
I won't pay attention to those movies.
Let's go ahead and have our open session. If there's anyone from the public that would like to address the council on an item that's not a public hearing, or if you would like to address a subject that's not on our agenda, feel free to come up and state your name and address at this time, and we'll hear you.
No.
Oh, you just signed it. Molly?
Molly Andrew, 1125 Sage Drive, and I just have one thing. In 2 weeks, we're going to do a community service project, and it's going to be sponsored by PG United. We're going to paint some curbs for the fire department, and right now some police parking only for the police department. And I have a longer list, so the more people that sign up and we know we're coming, then I'll create more projects. But it's at 8 o'clock Saturday morning, July 11th, and dress to paint and to work, and bring work gloves if you have it. And we're going to do it early before it gets hot.
I will be out of town, so
Yeah, good
I'm
luck.
sorry.
It's all right. I will be too. I'm disorganized.
Okay.
No, I'm just
So the rest of you.
But anyway, we just wanted to invite the candidates that are here and anybody who wants to come. We want to work together and get to know each other.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else?
Jason Hunter, 680 East, 300 North. Item E, is that supposed to be 2015, 2016 budget, or is that?
I asked the same question, but
No, it's
Okay.
it's an amendment for this year.
All right.
Thanks for pointing that out. So those that don't know, the city works on a fiscal year, which begins July 1 and ends June 30th. So, tomorrow, we start the 2016 budget. In case you were. Anyone else? Randy?
Randy Coomer, 1613 East, 400 South. Mine's a simple one. My son asked me a question, I can answer it. He brought up the issue. He said he had somewhere heard that the high school, and it did a lot of the construction around the high school with the tennis courts. He said, I thought we were supposed to have those courts open for the public to use in the evening. And I said, I don't know about that. And so I don't. So he said, I went over there to use it and it wasn't open, it was locked. And so
should be available, and maybe because there's construction going
Yeah.
on.
we are actually thinking that was Fox. I had another resident ask me about that a few weeks ago. We are waiting to finish construction. Someone asked about the tot lot there and the tennis courts, and because it's still under construction, it's uneven, areas with the landscape not being completed. That will be open to the public once they're complete with that, and that should be in the next few weeks, at the latest the fall, but that will be open to the public. That was part of the agreement.
okay, because I was wondering, he never played tennis, so when he asked me that, why are you asking
He
me?
wants to skateboard.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Okay, anyone else?
Carl Cooney, 2115 North, 180 West. 1800 North, 550 West by Manila Elementary. There's islands in the middle of the road that have been landscaped twice and are now dying again. I know we're in a drought, but what do we, Do you know what I'm referring
We do.
to?
Yeah, they were installed as a calming device
Mhm.
to help during the school year to slow traffic down and create a safe environment for the kids. So are you concerned about the money being
Yeah.
wasted because of?
Because if that was me, I'd be getting my butt chewed, yes.
Yes. So we haven't really discussed it. We can ask Dion. But generally speaking, if you look at a lot of these places, like on the freeway, we have turned the water off to conserve water on the city.
So my question to that, and I'm happy to meet with whoever, is it's been done once. I hope the first replacement was done by the contractor under warranty or somebody. But now this second time it's dying again. And I assume that's going to be on the city's dollar, which is all of our dollar.
Right.
And I'm also concerned that the traffic calming is a great idea, but the implementation of grass right there is poor.
Not the best.
Yeah, not the best idea. And so maybe the designer of that could help contribute some money.
Let's ask Dio, do you know anything about that particular island? Pardon me?
I have been out there a little bit, I'll look into it tomorrow.
Okay. And then you want to contact Carl?
So that would be my thing. And then my other question in that same area is Cadence Homes developed to the west of Manila Elementary. And we have sidewalks and then park strips that are undeveloped.
Okay, is this like where the barn was?
Yes.
Back that way?
Yes, the homes behind the barn where everybody goes and gets their photos taken and that. So the guy who owned the barn and that property landscaped the corner really nice. But there's a curb and gutter and then a park strip, sidewalk, and a fence. And nobody seems to be taking ownership of those park strips.
Heading south.
Heading south across the west, from west of Manila, right across the street, and then also on the north side of that development, same situation. And all those homeowners' yards are landscaped. And my concern is that we're not communicating when we approve plats who's responsible for those park strips. Because to my knowledge, the city doesn't want to be in the excessive landscape maintenance business. But there's no water or anything in those park strips either for the city to do anything.
Space between the sidewalk and the road?
There's the road, there's a curb and gutter, and then there's the 5 foot, we've referred to it as a park strip.
Okay,
And then there's a sidewalk and the concrete fence.
okay.
And so I just see that growing weeds and being undeveloped next to a new development. And so really my question is, how are we communicating between planning commission, city council, those kind of things, so those areas don't just go undeveloped and be eyesores in our city?
Let's turn this one to Ken. Or Dagan,
So I need
sorry.
to work with Dion to get that.
Pardon me?
I need to work with Dion to get that done.
So is it public then?
It's public area.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's us,
Okay,
you and me, all of us.
I've got shovels. Let's go.
I've got comments.
Thank you.
Wait,
Thank you.
speaking of shovels,
They're used. Just kidding.
I'm interested in having a company such as your own or several give us bids on xeriscaping the medians from Pleasant Grove Boulevard, the one you're talking about over on 1800. Taking the bushes out, leaving the trees, putting some rock in, because, you know, the situation this year and prior years, and going to a xeriscape maintenance, that once the bushes are out and the rocks are in, our parks department would have an easier time maintaining that. There's a lot of bushes, especially they're kind of sticky or stickery bushes, I'm gonna say, that attract garbage and things like that that are hard to get out. I'm interested in taking a lot of that out and not only conserving water, but just giving it a cleaner look. And I'm wondering if that is something council would be interested in having that bid out to several companies to have them come in. I don't know if we have the tools necessary, public works to pull out some of those larger bushes and landscape that, but once that's done, we can maintain it. But that'd be something that we'd be interested in. And I'm talking about Pleasant Grove Boulevard as well.
So let's ask a question, just of those that are here on the council. Are you in favor of xeriscape on those areas? Or Or an alternative, just in case, is like some of what you see in dry areas of California along the freeways or Nevada, where I realize a lot of that is xeriscape, but they also have like some kind of plant that doesn't require
Right.
as much water.
Right.
And it is kind of a light green color, almost a tubular plant.
Yeah, I'm really interested, for a lot of reasons, the water issue, plus the way it looks and such, and I think our staff, Beyond, and those can, create that in a new plan. I think we just have to look at it. I think in the past, the rain has been okay, the way that we've landscaped has been okay. I think I'm in favor of looking at something that is easy for the guys to maintain and less water and still attractive to those driving around.
There's a lot of areas in the city that could be zero scope and reduce our costs, so yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think it's a discussion definitely worth having. We need to look at, there's certainly discussions we've had in the past about the dangers of rocks and being thrown into roads or picked up by kids or whatever the risks could be. We have a lot of details to anticipate, but it's a discussion worth having, absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just direct staff to explore some options, come back and make some recommendations without a specific date to make that happen. Okay?
Explore would be key in that. There's certain parameters, like when you get into your freeway off ramps and things, UDOT, as you guys know, they're second to none and listen to none. And so like their landscaping, they put it in that way, and we as a city are obligated to maintain it for so many years. It's not necessarily, so I don't know if we're past that window, you know what I mean? Because they actually do checks and follow up on the city and the city maintenance crews. With xeriscaping, it is a little bit more upfront. The savings is in the maintenance and in the water. So there's a lot of discussion for a lot of different time, and I would be happy to do that. But that's part of my thing about that traffic calming device is I'm going, I understand the intent of putting some greenery in there, but at this point, fake turf would have been, even though fake turf is a lot more expensive up front, now that we're on our third go around, it would have been more economical. And I just see it getting neglected. And I see our resources not expanding from our crews to our economics to those kind of things. So just trying to look at landscaping as an ongoing cost and making sure we're smart about it. Thank you.
And that's my intent as well, is trying to make it more about maintenance for the crews.
Yeah.
Water conservation, better look. things like that, so.
I think as long as we're as committed when we have the 1983 flood, then, we'll be okay. Yeah.
Matt Godsey, 1026 East, 1100 North. I just want to make a suggestion to Dion. If you look at St. George and specifically Ivans, they've done a lot of xeriscaping, and some of it they've poured a light layer of concrete and done different colored rocks over the tops of those medians so that you don't have the potential of people taking rocks and throwing them out. Turf was another one, so you guys did a good job of exploring a lot of those options, but those are a couple cities that I have seen a lot of things done here in Utah with native plants and everything else in those cities.
I'll take a field trip about October, November.
I'm just trying to help you out, Dion.
Thanks to January. Randy, did you have a comment?
Well, on your landscaping, I was just gonna invite you to come over to Utah Transit Authority and see how they landscaped it with the rocks and look at all their different plants and see what's living there right now to get an idea.
Building over an arm.
You got a worm, you got American fork, you got lehigh. Lehigh gives you an example of what grass and different things mixed where it kind of fails. So if you want a failure, it's not really a bad failure, but there is some good roses over there. There's different things, plants. You can look at all the different plants they got. They're all those stations. Provost's got another one where you got a lot of rocks and a few plants here and there that's not taking a lot of water to.
What about this CWCD one up on Central Utah Water?
Yeah.
They have a whole garden that's
Drought
almost
tolerant.
xeriscape.
Yeah, so you can go around and look at all these different sites and see what they've done to get ideas for plants and whatever we want.
Sounds good. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Hamilton. I'm at 359 West, 400 North. So I live in, it was like I think they called it the Cook subdivision, where there was 3 lots developed. It's right next to the pipe plant. And so I have some questions about some of the zoning around there. I know they're putting up that huge complex for the 55 and older, which is whatever, 2 blocks in front. There's a lot adjacent that's basically right in front of my house. I think a lot. Well, I think it's owned. Well, my last understanding was owned by the costume craze.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody confirm or deny that? Do you guys have any?
It's all one piece of property from 4th North to Center Street.
Yeah, including
And
empty property.
do they still own that?
Yes, it's all one
Okay.
piece of property.
Because there was rumors that someone had bought it, and our whole neighborhood was concerned that, okay, we have a private land that they can't access, that they need to put a fence up there. And what is that zoned as, do you know? Sure, that's fine. So, and then other questions, when we moved in that neighborhood, we were told that they would put a mailbox up for the whole street because they don't come down. We have these temporary mailboxes put up in this space that there's a square all set apart. So I don't know if that's a city. I'm assuming the city needs to coordinate with the post office to put in a lock and key mail for that
That's
street.
usually your developer that puts that in. And then whoever sells you the home, you work with the post office to get a key, and that's where you pick up your mail and
Sure, but
drop off your mail.
I mean, I know that development went bankrupt, someone else bought it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, I mean, that was years ago when we came in. We were the last ones to build in the neighborhood, and nothing's been built. So I'm curious on behalf of our whole street, how do we get that done, and who's responsible for that?
Is there a mailbox there?
No.
Oh,
Basically, we put up we have temporary mailboxes that are in like 5-gallon buckets of rock, so that we can get mail. But we were told that, anyways,
Okay.
they're supposed to put a
I
mailbox in
understand
there.
what you're saying. Ken or Dagan, is there something that we coordinate when we do that with developments? Usually
It's
the
the
post office, right?
So they need to go to the post office.
Yeah. My understanding, and this is what I've seen happen, you go to the post office, you talk to the postmaster, tell them where you are, the whole thing, and then somehow between the people that live there and the post office, you guys figure out together, are they gonna provide this multiplex box, or are you guys gonna provide it because it should have been part of the development? Or are you gonna continue to have individual boxes?
Gotcha.
And then they are the ones that dictate that, not the city.
And then the last thing, while he's looking that up, is so the pipe plant. When we originally bought there, we were told by the mayor himself at the time, the previous mayor, that they were in the process of developing that into parks and extending the cemetery down. But that was 2 years ago.
Right. It's gonna take even longer.
So do we
but
have?
that's not changed.
Okay.
So you have 20 acres on the west side with a line running north-south. That'll be developed into 2 detention basins for storm runoff.
Okay.
You have approximately 10 acres on the northeast side that will be developed into an extension of the cemetery, along with some buildings for cemetery and parks. And then there's a 10-acre parcel on the southeast side,
Okay.
which should be more directly across from the inside.
Yeah, the
west
southeast side would be basically what my street runs into.
Okay, so that area there is still not settled.
Okay.
There's questions amongst the community whether the fire station could go there, or staff and council have been looking also at putting public works there because they're out of space. So that 10-acre parcel is the only part that we haven't decided upon.
How does the city propose they're going to pay for the parks and the retention?
So the parks are coming out of, it's part of the development of the detention basins.
Okay.
So the detention basin comes out of the stormwater fund,
Okay.
which they have funds for and they collect for with fees. And so that's the money that would be used to develop those 2 basins and how the water gets moved, et
Sure.
cetera. And then the idea that we're all throwing in is when they're not full of water, let's grass them, stripe them, and use them as
Soccer fields or something.
soccer fields. And that would come under Parks and Rec for that
Okay.
part of it.
And so you think you're 2 years out at least or something?
Do we have a idea?
We have a package we're putting together, so there was a little bit of work up there recently where we were removing the railroad spur.
We saw that.
So that's step one. The next step is to raise the rest of the site. So there's 2 buildings on the east side that we intend to keep for a while until they're replaced with something else to work out what's going on in the southeast corner. But the rest of the property, probably September, October timeframe, we'll remove all the rest of the buildings, remove all of the equipment on site, all the piping, things that we can get to underground. Clear it such that we can mow it a couple of times a year and kind of take care of it. But at this point, that's kind of the end of where we really kind of, with the council, decided where we're going.
That's more maintenance to kind
Sure.
of clean it up. The actual detention basins cost quite a bit of money.
Oh, sure.
And so that's gonna have to come forward in a capital project from the sewer fund, or not sewer fund, the detention basin, or the water, stormwater, sorry, in the next few years. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just an idea. I mean, obviously all these things cost money, but that area is kind of random. I mean, it has a lot of older, our street's brand new. There's another cul-de-sac that was a private, it's a couple of years back, maybe 5 years old or so, maybe more now. But if you took a section of it, sold it to a developer, minimum make a quarter-acre lots, you could receive some income to do, and it would give, you know, some newer home values instead of building more apartment complexes. I think Pleasant Grove.
On the 40 acres?
Mhm.
Yeah, the 40 acres will likely not turn into any kind of housing at all.
Okay.
All 40 are actually needed for services, for city services that we have outgrown. Cemetery within the next 7 years will be full, and so that extra 10 acres is going to be
Sure,
needed
yeah.
to bury people. Same thing with the detention. If we don't get that, there's no other land
Right.
to buy. And so that just leaves, what do we do, public works versus public safety?
Sure.
So it's pretty, you know, now there's other homes to the east of that. From time to time, they come in and ask, is the city interested in picking them up?
Mhm.
So that's about the only
Yeah.
potential we see.
So you have no plans to put any newer neighborhoods in there?
Not in that area.
Yeah, I mean, if the city ever changed their mind, it would help with property values. It would help to pay for the project instead of having it all, it's because it's just getting older and older. And it'd be less, so it's just an idea. And then you're able to find what that
Yeah,
zone.
so your property is R18, and the homes that are to the east, west of you on 400 North. And then the Costume Craze property is part of the downtown village zone.
Okay.
Which you'll have to ask Ken for particulars if you want to get with him, talk about what could happen there.
Do we have any generic idea? I mean, our concern is what they put in across, because literally I walk out my front door, there's a private lane and then there's a field.
So
And what it
which direction do you walk down and look?
I look right at the field, and then through the field is that huge apartment complex. We face west.
You face west. So along Center Street, which is the bigger road that has the railroad track still crossing it,
Mhm.
the way that's been designated is it's a corridor to enter into the part of the old city.
Mhm.
And everything along there over time should develop into commercial sales or some other type of commercial facing Center Street.
Sure, right. But behind the Costume Craze is this large field that we've heard rumors that, because people have come and look at it, that some developer was going to go in there and put multifamily housing in there. So that was our whole neighborhood started seeing these guys pull in, walk, and survey the property. So we thought maybe they're going to sell this part of the chunk of land. So our concern was what's going in right in front of our house, and basically what is going to be zoned, what restrictions are placed there. I mean, we would hope that they would have to put at least a 6-foot fence, and they can't access our private lane. So I mean, that's obviously why we.
So, okay, on this particular one, I think I understand now. What we need to do is keep you in touch with Dagan and Ken, because as soon as somebody comes in, if they want to sell their land for development, there's a public process for rezoning, notices,
Okay.
where the neighborhood gets to come in and talk about concerns, and these types of issues that you're raising are where those get handled.
Okay.
Fencing,
Yeah.
you know, types of materials,
Right.
all of that is handled during that design phase.
Okay.
Okay.
So I
But
just
at
need.
present, we have no plans.
Okay. Perfect. All right. I think that's it. All right. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for the open session?
Mine is a question and then hope to put the council or somebody to make sure it gets followed through on. Frank Mills, 466 East, First South. Hi, Matt. After being gone for a couple of years, I was going up Second South to go visit my daughter, and as I went past the entrance to the Battle Creek Park, and it was a disaster, and I was going to come down and get on Dion and Razzie, and didn't do it. And then when I went back up the next time, there was a paper sign there folded over, and I stopped and pulled it up, and it said closed. So I thought, okay. And then I looked in and seen the tennis courts and all the construction going on there, and I thought, well, that's, you know, they must have made their, you know, come up with something to do there at the park, that they were making changes. Well, then I was sitting out on my back porch and remembered back in the early, I think it was in the 90s, I'm not sure, it was a long time ago, the city was approached by the SIDS organizations, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. And each year they do a project to remember the children that died during that year. And I talked with Dion about it this morning, or tonight before the meeting. But they asked Pleasant Grove, because we had some people in Pleasant Grove that had lost children. In fact, one of them, I was the bishop of one of them. And they says, do you have somewhere that we could plant these trees? Each family come up and we'll buy the trees and plant them to remember these children by. And Mayor Holdaway told me, yes, we'd be glad to. We've got the Battle Creek Park, and we've wanted to develop kind of an arboretum there. And so they made the arrangements, and it was on one Saturday that they came up, and I think there was around 80 trees that they planted. And I asked Dion, because I thought we made a map of which family's tree was each tree, so that we know who they were, especially when they come back to visit years later, you know, as it goes on, because this has been 25 years ago, I think. But anyway, I went back in there and the trees are gone. There's tennis courts there, there's a playground, but the trees are gone. And as Dion said, some of them had died, which we should be replacing those that died, but those that got tore out. And he says, well, and Dion told me, he says he understands that they're going to come back and replant the trees. What I'd like you as elected officials to make sure is that, doggone it, those trees, those 80 trees go back in, and those families, that's children, were remembered by a tree, be notified of which one is theirs. Because there's a lot of people come down during the years to, on the anniversary of the death, just like we did on Memorial Day and things like that, of their child, to see the tree. And if they come down there right now, there's nothing there. And I don't know if the SIDS organization was notified. Dion said just save the plaque. But I don't know if the SIDS organization was applied or anybody was talked to about this, because, I mean, it's fine, but let's please make sure, because until you've been through this, you can't accept it. You can't understand what it is. And I've been through it. But until you make sure that those people know where their child's tree is, doggone it. You wouldn't let them go out and steal a headstone out of the cemetery. And you better not let them go and not put the tree back and notify somebody where it's at. So I just want to make sure that that gets taken care of. Thank you.
Frank, do you know if records were kept by the city?
What's that?
Do you know if we kept records as a city?
Well, I hope, yes, I'm sure. I looked it up on and I'm not the best computer man as you know, but I looked it up and found it in the Deseret News. They had a big write-up about it of everyone, and Dion and the parks people were all up there with them. They helped plan them. We were the city was up there helping to plan them and showing them where we wanted them put. And that's where Dion says they haven't found the map, but we wrote down their names and which tree it was so that they would be able to locate them.
Deal. Got another assignment. Thank you. Thanks, Frank. Anybody else? Going once? Okay. We'll close the open session. That was lively and it didn't take that long. Thank you. All right, we have some consent agenda items, minutes and, or no minutes, and paid vouchers. Do we have any discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent items.
Okay, so we have a motion by Eric,
Second.
second by Sid. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Next item of business is 7A, to consider for approval the appointment of Matt, I'm gonna get it wrong, Neidiger as a planning commission member and Dustin Phillips as a board of adjustment member. Are you guys here? Are they here?
I spoke or communicated with Dustin Phillips. He's on vacation this week, so he was unable to be in attendance. I did not hear back from Matt.
Okay. And the council is already aware of these people because we've had them in before, and you've got the descriptions in your packets. Are there any questions?
So just as clarification, Matt's an alternate,
Yes.
Or come in as an alternate.
coming in as an alternate, but Dustin is a full member.
Actually, they're both alternates.
Yeah, we've had like 6 changes in the last year, I think, now.
Okay.
With planning commission. Okay, any other questions?
As a legal matter, do we do these as 2 separate motions or 2 separate motions?
And also, please make sure that you note that it's an alternate
Okay.
position. Just so we can keep terms clear when we go back into the
This is Matt. Is he here?
No,
No,
please
not
see it.
the
I
one.
don't think he's here. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we approve the appointment of Matt Neidiger as a planning commission alternate member and Dustin Phillips as a board of adjustment alternate member.
Separate motions.
Oh, okay. So first appointment of Matt Neidiger as a planning commission alternate member.
I'll second that.
Question. Ken, is it an alternate on the board of adjustment?
Yes.
It is, okay. All right, we have a motion by Sid, a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And then I make the motion that we approve Dustin Phillips, the board of adjustment alternate member.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
So we have a motion by Sid and a second by Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So I must have missed that. Sid, on the first motion, did you nominate 2 people? My mind was,
I did
The
the very
first,
first time and then I
correct.
corrected it
okay,
to just
thank
Matt,
you.
yeah.
All right. Motion carries. All right, item 7B, the long-awaited Public Safety Building Committee. I've circulated, you guys, this council has done a remarkable job and it's taken a very long time. And we appreciate where we've come to at this point. We have wonderful people in our community that have stepped up and volunteered to donate the rest of their lives to helping us with our public safety facility needs. We've had multiple discussions and we've have agreement on the part of the council as to the members serving. I won't post this up here, but I am going to read the names. As members of as regular members of the Public Safety Building Committee, We have, let me get it wrong, Brian William, is that right? Okay. Jason Hunter, Larry Nelson.
We have them stand up there.
Yes, please. Okay. Brian William, Jason Hunter, Larry Nelson, Christy Belt, Tracy Scott. I think Tracy was not able to be here tonight. Okay, Trina Bolingbroke.
Bolingbroke.
Did I get that wrong? Bolingbroke.
Bolingbroke.
Thank you. Bolingbroke.
It's spelled broke, but you say
Okay,
it.
Jacob Such. And Bill West. Is Bill here? I didn't see him come in.
He
Okay.
left on trip today.
Is he left today? Okay. So these are going to be the regular members of the committee, and we're gonna treat it just like we do Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment. They'll be doing the voting, if there's voting to take place. Okay, so you guys can sit down. And then our alternate members, Wayne Nauman, Molly Andrew, Andrea Snow, Jan Van Norman. I really said that too fast. There's no N in the, it's Norman. Okay. Kira Harris, Steve Schrader, I think Steve's here, Randy Coomer, and Frank Anderson. Is Frank here? I think he was also going to be out of town. These are going to be the alternate members, and the way that'll work is they'll all be at the same table, regular and alternates. They'll all participate in discussion. If for some reason a regular member is absent, an alternate member will sit in their place and vote for that evening, and then they'll communicate afterwards to make sure everybody's kept up to speed. Yeah, all of the ones that I've read have accepted.
Just as a comment, I know that attendance is really vital
It is.
in these committee meetings. And so did we, I can't remember, did we put into some kind of
We did.
bylaws? If they miss one, they miss two, they're done, or
Two
what is-
consecutive meetings without any excuses, then we're automatically going to move an alternate
up to that other?
into the
Okay.
regular
I can't
role.
remember where.
And
we
then
had
the
set that.
regular person would step back into an alternate role.
All right, I couldn't remember what we had set as the attendance.
Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion.
And I'll make the motion that we approve the appointments as read for the Public Safety Building Committee.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Ben and a second by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will coordinate schedules with you offline and set up the first meeting when we can get everybody together. The first thing we'll do is set up a schedule. So thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you volunteering.
Thank you for the commitment. It's gonna be
Well, thankless job.
intense commitment. So thank you.
No, they don't have to stay the rest of the evening. Okay, we have some presentation. We have a presentation. Item 8A, Matt Millis, Zion's Public Finance, presenting the city's storm drain impact fee study. Prefaced by
Yeah, let me just introduce Matt real quick. Matt's with Zion's Public Finance. So firm you're probably familiar with. So we've spent time off and on over the past several months putting together an update to the storm drain impact fee study. John Sheese is here as well. You may have some questions for John. John and Matt have worked closely together to kind of put this all together. I think I just want to preface just a couple comments. One, just impact fee studies in general. There's something that we need to impact or update on a fairly regular basis because they're based on the projects that we intend to do over a certain period of time. The storm drain impact fee study is probably a little overdue in getting done, so I'm glad to get this close to being finished. What Matt's done, and he'll show this when he gets to it, is obviously if we think about it, we have a lot of capital projects related to the storm drain, master plan, infrastructure plan and everything. And the funding for those projects, some of it's going to come through rates paid by users, some of it's going to come through impact fees. And that kind of all has to be balanced here. In other words, we're not able to, if you have a project that is going to be partially paid for with impact fees and partially paid for with user rates, we can't have an impact fee that's going to pay for its portion without the user rate portion being paid for as well. So there's kind of a balance here, and Matt's going to talk about this a little bit, but in order to get looking ahead at user rates and the impact fees, we've actually pulled back quite a bit on some of the projects that we're intending to do. And I know John might have some comments on that you can ask him as we get to it. So I'll just let Matt go ahead. He's got a few slides, and this is really just a presentation. The idea is to present it to you, see what concerns or questions you have, and then the next step would to either resolve those concerns or come back in a few weeks and have a public hearing on it and then adopt it. So there is a public hearing process on this, but today is really just a presentation from Matt showing his findings.
In case you don't recognize them, these are signature chocolate nuts from Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mayor Daniels, members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening to talk about this impact fee study. This has been a pretty complicated study. I know we were here back about a year ago, or last year, talking about a lot of key decisions that we needed to make in moving forward with this study. And so I think we have the culmination of all our thoughts and decisions over capital projects, and I think we have prepared a very defensible, complete impact fee study for stormwater. So I'm trying to, which remote? Sorry, Dean.
It's neither of those.
Okay.
I think it's this one.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So we're talking impact fees tonight, and just for clarity, an impact fee is a fee that is not charged to existing residents. It is charged to new development. And basically it is charged to new development to pay for the capacity of the infrastructure that's required to serve that new development. So basically the idea is a new home comes on, that requires capacity in your system. That impact fee pays for that capacity. It's not assessed in a monthly user rate. It's not assessed to existing users unless they are building a new house within the city. And so the impact fee is only charged at one time as a project, a home, or a business is going through the building permit process. That's the only time. All we can recover through an impact fee is the cost of capital. We cannot recover any operation and maintenance expense, and that capital has to be shown to be required to serve new development. So capital costs for repair and replacement, we can't include that in the impact fee. And so basically, again, we want to create a nexus between the cost of infrastructure and the capacity of that infrastructure required to serve that new home or business. And so in this particular case, I tend to get very detailed into the numbers, and we were very happy to get lots and lots of very good, solid data from Dean and John to be able to prepare this study. There's not one calculation that I think that we've wavered on towards the end. What we've had to look at is the cost of existing facilities, how they were funded, how much existing capacity is already being taken by existing users, and then how much is left for growth to utilize. We had to look at your future projects. Some of those future projects are clearly 100% growth related. Some of them, upsizings, are partially non-impact fee qualifying. The other portion is impact fee qualifying. And so we had to look through a whole lot of different issues to come up with the fee that we're recommending this evening. So currently the city does assess a stormwater impact fee, which is on a per acre basis. And so a lot of 1 acre, a 1 acre home, let's say, or a commercial property, be charged $2,013 per acre. And so if you take a 1/4 acre lot, that's about $680 a home. Now that impact fee, I think, was calculated 2005, 2000. It's been a while, and there's been a lot of changes to the impact fees laws, clarifications on what we can charge for, clarifications on what we can't charge for. And so basically we've used today's methodology to recalculate our fee. And what we've derived is an impact fee per single family home of about $2,226. And so that would be assessed on a per home basis. Now, non-residential has a different set of calculations, which I haven't gotten into this, but basically certain areas of the city are required to provide on-site detention to certain levels. Some areas, or most of the city, is at a 10-year storm requirement for detention. Some areas of the city are on a 100-year, meaning they have to retain almost everything on their commercial property and release very little into the city system. And so we've got a differentiated system for the non-residential users according to what their on-site detention requirements are.
So Matt, are the 680 and the 2226, are they combined?
So the 680 is the fee that you charge today, right now. The 2,226, if you were to adopt that at the full level, would be the fee that would be proposed in the public hearing.
So that's how long it's been since we've addressed this?
Yeah, and you know, honestly, the methodology that would have been done back in the days of the first one, well, first of all, I can't tell you exactly how it was done, but I know that back in those times, there were a lot of costs that are eligible costs that were probably not analyzed and put into the fee. And so there's just some mechanically very different ways of calculating the fees between now and then. That's not a factor of cost inflation between 2005, 2007, and today. It's a whole different way of calculating the fee. But you know, we work closely with the state property rights ombudsman, local home builders associations, a lot of attorneys who have opinions on impact fees, and we feel like our methodology is quite sound. And one thing I didn't note it in here, just to keep it simple, is we've provided almost $1,000 credit against the true cost of the stormwater to account for what future users are going to pay in their future user rates to upsize the lines that benefit existing users. And so we've included a pretty healthy credit. I think we've taken a pretty conservative approach. So
this is 3 1/3 times what they're paying today.
that is correct. That is correct. But as you look at stormwater impact fees around in Salt Lake County, Utah County, Davis, Weber County, this is not out of line by any means. I would say that the 680 is notably lower than what most communities would charge, rather than the 2,000 being much, much higher. Any other questions on that?
I had a quick one. You described a differential system, where we, in some areas, account for a 25-year storm, in other areas, a 100-year storm. Can you explain to me again why we have differences in different areas?
John might be able to provide the really technical description. And if you'd like to, John, please.
The majority of the city is residential, and the residential areas don't provide their own detention. And so all of the storm drain outflow from residential areas goes straight into the pipes, and the pipes need to be sized bigger. And then they go to regional detention facilities that the city constructs and maintains. And so the system is funded through their impact fees and user rates to do that. In a commercial area, we require them to detain their storm. And so they have to have a detention area that they build themselves, and then they release their water at a lower rate. And so the outflow doesn't affect the downstream city facilities near as much as a residential does. And so they get a discount on the 2,226 based on the fact they're already providing some of their own infrastructure to handle that.
So does the fact that a residential home have the potential of more undeveloped ground to absorb water? Is that factored in?
It is factored in, yes. Yes.
Any other questions? I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so as we calculate our impact fee, we have to look at future capital projects. And what we identified is in the next 10 years, approximately $14 million in stormwater improvements would need to be funded. Not all of that's impact fee qualifying because we have a lot of upsizing of lines, meaning that if you go from a 12-inch to a 20-inch line, the capacity that relates to that existing 12-inch capacity stays with existing users, and then that increased capacity goes to new growth. And so what we've estimated is approximately $5.2 million of the $14 million will be impact fee qualifying expense. The remainder relates to the upsizing costs of the facilities, and that's really what we've provided a credit for, is the $8 million that really relates to line upsizing is going to be paid for by user rates. And those user rates will be paid for by the future users that pay the impact fee as well. And so we figured it's not fair to charge them both an impact fee as well as the user rates that will help upsize a line. So we gave about $1,000 credit for those line upsizing costs because of that rate paying issue. Any questions on that?
I didn't follow those numbers anymore.
Okay.
Is that on the total line?
Sorry, if I had a laser pointer. So if you look, blue pen. Okay, here we go. Sorry, Mayor. Okay, so these are in 2013 dollars. These are the future value. And so when I'm talking about $14 million, I'm referring to the total of line upsizing projects and build out improvements. Build out improvements are ones that are truly 100% growth related. The upsizings are split roughly 71% to existing users, 29% to new growth. And so the 14 million is in future value is the price tag that we're talking. 5.2 million is what we're going to consider to be growth related. And then 8.8 million is what is to be, it's non-impact fee qualifying, it would be funded by user rates.
So the 8.8 plus the 5.2, that's the 14.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's
Who
correct.
funds the non-qualifying? Where does that come from?
So this is again spread over a 10-year period of time, perhaps even longer, depending upon how actual development occurs. And so that kind of leads us to our next slide. And I can go back, Mayor, if you'd like. But basically, the user rates that you have will need to be reviewed regularly to see how the actual timing of the projects affects your revenues and your bonding if there was to be future needs. It'll need to be, your rates should be looked at regularly to determine what should actually occur, but there is the potential to issue bonds into the future. But I think it ought to be made on a decision ought to be made on a year-to-year basis.
I guess I might be asking the wrong question.
Oh, sorry.
There's $8 million that do not qualify as impact fee.
Yes.
So therefore, new development will not cover the cost of 8.8 million.
That's correct.
Of this 14. So where does the 8.8 million come from? Right. So
That would be funded through.
where do we collect that 8.8? Is it part of our monthly bill?
Yeah.
The storm drain fees?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And so you know what, if those projects can be spread out in a nice uniform, even pattern, or even pushed back a little bit to where you can save up some cash to fund that, you know, that's the ideal way. If development occurs and things have to be bunched up a little bit tighter, perhaps there's the need for partially funding that with a bond. But ultimately, either way, it's those monthly user fees that would make up that expense. That concludes my presentation. I don't know if there's any additional questions. There's my contact information if you'd like to give me a call to ask a question or what have you. But
So Dean, on my week or monthly bill, utility bill that comes in the mail, I got like 9 items on there, right? One of them is storm drain. Is that where it shows up?
Right.
So that's $13.09.
Correct.
Under this proposal, what will this number be?
We factored in some numbers. I think they were maybe 5%-ish increases a year.
So it's a fairly small number.
70 cents to $1 a year, something like
A
that.
home user. Does any of it has to do with size of lot? Where is this?
Every single family home pays the same.
The same, okay.
Commercial properties pay based on a equivalent residential or equivalent service unit. I just say year, yeah. So a commercial may pay a multiple of that based on their size, but a single family home will all face the same.
Okay, and this is the only place that existing development pays for upsizing or new projects not related to growth.
Right.
Thank you.
okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else have questions for Matt? What's the next step?
So I think the next step is if you have things that you'd like us to look in further, we can do that. If you're ready to just take this to a public hearing, we could set a date for that in a couple of weeks and have a public hearing and then go from there.
Council?
John, what information do you have for us?
I'm just here to, in case you ask questions.
You did a good job, Mike.
And I should say too, so part of it, and I think I mentioned it just a little bit, but I should probably mention it one more. So when we first went through the numbers, the impact fee was actually quite a bit higher. We backed off actually quite a few projects. I think 40% of the projects related, we backed off just to get the fee a little lower and keep the user rates a little lower. We're also not addressing, just in general, the issue of we have some storm drain ditches and things that go between people's backyards and things like that, that ideally we wouldn't do, but the cost to do that is just a lot. So despite the fact that the fee is going up and we have issues with storm rate fee rates in general, we are trying to be conservative in what projects we do and push a lot. We are
So
pushing a lot of things off.
This is not the end. This is just an incremental step.
Yeah, and there's just and maybe a discussion for a later date is just discuss our whole storm drain master plan.
Well, I think we've been through some of the master plans.
Yeah.
They show us the red, the green, the yellow, where we have to upsize, et cetera, and the length, and that's because somebody else joined upstream, so this has to be widened. And I imagine that's what feeds into the capital plan. And then that's gonna dictate the rate that we have to collect over time. But if we're not accounting for everything, I mean, if we're artificially.
Well, we're pushing things. We're doing this over probably a longer time than maybe our engineers and public works people would see as ideal, but we can only do what we can kind of afford to, so.
Okay.
Well, part of my question, Dean, is what drives our price increases, and is there philosophical discussions that can still be had about whether we want to have a 25-year runoff or a 10-year or 100-year, and if those are mandated by the EPA, or if there are other areas where there's some flexibility for a governing body like this to examine and try to strike some compromises. So
I think those are fair discussions to have, and John, if I don't want to misquote him, but I think he would be open to that. I think what we don't want to have is a master plan that sets an ideal that we really can't afford.
Right. So would the council entertain having John come back and discuss the master plan before we approve the rates? I mean, I think it'd be good to have those two pieces of info fresh before I'd like to understand what are we not including.
And I think John can do that. My only hesitation is I don't want to put off adopting the impact fee study for a long period of time just because we're kind of overdue for doing that anyways. I don't think we have to we can work on both of them at the same time. I guess what I'm saying. We don't have to get the whole master plan issue resolved before we adopt this impact fee study.
How long do you need?
Oh, I can give a presentation on the current master plan anytime. Just a review of what's involved and how much the costs are and all that. And we can have a discussion about different levels of level of service. We've had this topic before. Well, we can have that discussion anytime. I know that Dagan has asked for an update for a cost estimate. What would it take to look at the master plan, at least in concept, and say, what's the cost difference between a 25-year storm versus a 10-year storm?
That's an excellent question, the same one I have.
You bet. And I'm happy to, tomorrow morning, I was gonna put that cost estimate together. I don't have it just yet. But I'm willing to do that. That one will take me another, probably a month to be able to get that done. And then we could come back and discuss both of them.
So I'm thinking a little differently.
Okay.
When we go over the master plan, that's when you kind of present all of the different detailed projects that need to be addressed, which ones we're gonna do, in what time frame, and that's one level of detail that's pretty down there. I'm looking for the one that gives us the higher level summary that explains the tie-in between what you're seeing that leads into what Matt's presenting.
And I can do that anytime as well.
Okay, so like a 15-minute, 20-minute kind of.
Mayor, that won't address Ben's concern with looking at alternatives. So right now, our plan assumes that we detain in basins and have a system capable of conveying in pipes up through the 25-year storm. Other communities such as Linden do that at the 10-year storm. American Fork is looking at doing it with the 100-year storm. All of these are the philosophical decision. At what point will we expect to flood some residents? At some point in time, you can have a weather event that will exceed your ability to handle it in pipes. And so what level of risk are we willing to take as a community? If you want to look at that type of a philosophical question, we've already made a plan based on one set of acceptance. If we want to look at it differently, that's what will take more time to look at.
I can see where that would take quite a while, actually. But I would think that would come as part of the discussion of the entire plan, because it affects everything that we're building into the master plan at that point. We're no longer planning for 100-year detention. We're planning for just 50-year events or 25-year events. And then we also have recent occurrences like 83, 84, and also more recently than that, where we've seen these floods that come in. We have experiences where one wrong turn takes out people's homes, etc. It causes flooding. So I think that's an opportunity for us to discuss that. But if we don't want to delay the implementation of the current plan, maybe we can break those into two. Have the one that's associated with the current, and then have the deeper discussion, which is where should we be headed as far as the type of detention that we're looking at.
Yeah.
You okay with that? You guys okay with that? All right. So can you do that in 2 weeks?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Tina, can you put that on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm making a note of it right now.
Thank you.
I was gonna say that would be the 14th. I thought you and Scott were gonna be here that week.
Yeah. You didn't understand?
I understand now.
How about next week?
That's fine.
Okay, let's do it next week. That'll get us with the rate part of this done. And then, I think he said a month before you'll have the rest of.
Before I can do a comparison between a 10-year and a 25-year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where we're headed with this kind of stuff. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. John.
Great presentation.
Okay, item 9A, these have public discussion or public hearings. Public hearing to consider for approval of final plat for a 4-lot subdivision called Jack Hill Plat B. This is the one that's being continued. Okay, and then 9B is also being continued. The first one was to July 7th. Was there a date? Yeah, July 7th. Okay, 9C.
We didn't make a motion on those.
Usually I request that you make a motion just to keep the record clear, because they are public hearings, we want to make sure that everyone has specific notice of the day they're going to be.
Okay, can we have a motion on 9A?
Mayor, I'll make the motion that the public hearing to consider approval of final plat for 4-lot subdivision called Jack Hill Plat B, being approximately 1.02 acres on property located approximately 766 east, 100 south, and the R110 single family residential zone be continued until July 7th.
Motion by Ben, second by Eric, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then on 9B,
Mayor, I move that we continue until July 7th, the public hearing to consider for approval of preliminary and final plat for 5-lot subdivision called Grove Creek Center Commercial Subdivision, being approximately 2.2 acres located approximately 2168 West Grove Parkway in the Grove Zone Interchange Subdistrict.
motion by Ben, second by Eric, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, 9C, being continued. Public hearing to consider for adoption an ordinance 2015-23 to rezone 1 acre of land from the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict to the Grove Zone Mixed Housing Subdistrict on property located at approximately 100 South, 1300 West in the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict. Ken?
Okay, Mr. John Har owns a piece of property that has kind of an odd shape to it, 1 acre, and it is located just off of 1300 South, West, or Proctor Lane. And so the piece of it that we're talking about here tonight is approximately 1 acre in size, and his property actually extends all the way through here. Now there is a planned roadway that will come along to the north side of his property and then bend down to connect into 220 South over here. So it will bisect his property, and it actually leaves this narrow strip of land, which currently has had a residential type of use on it. But as far as its zoning currently, which is the Grove Commercial Sales Subdistrict, it's very limiting in what can be developed on that property. Now, he has looked at that, and with the current zoning requirements and parking requirements, if he were to do commercial, it would be very limiting in the size of buildings that he would be able to put there. Plus, he feels that the frontage not really being on Proctor Lane, but most of it being up on First South, which becomes 220 through here, is not the best visibility or frontage for a commercial type situation. So because he is adjacent to mixed housing zoning to the north and to the west, and that there is existing residential to the south of him, that it is his request that this portion of his property be rezoned to mixed housing so that he can do some condominiums there. He still will be limited in the development because of the setbacks, because of parking requirement, but parking requirement for residential is lower than it is for commercial. So there, he'd have a little bit more room to work with there. As he has come up with a concept on that, I don't think we have it attached there, but his concept has shown a maximum of 8 units. It's either 6 to 8 units that he would be able to develop, townhome type condominiums. So that is his request, to rezone this 1 acre portion of his property from commercial sales to mixed housing.
Can you go back to where it shows the road?
I don't actually have a slide with the road on it, the future road.
Cut off a portion of this or not?
It would ultimately have a curved effect right here, yes. It'd probably be very minimal on that corner.
So is it gonna go more that way? I thought it would have.
So you can see a little bit of, and I apologize, we don't have a larger view here, but this is the 220 South intersection. You can see a little bit of the curvature there. So the road would come in through here. So it might just barely skirt the edge of his property.
So is that road planned? So we.
Yes, it's a master plan road. And recently we did approve the site plan for this development, the Garden Grove mixed housing development, and they will be installing a portion of that roadway in through here. Planning Commission did review this request and, not ultimately, unanimously, there's the word, sorry, unanimously recommended approval.
So what's our, on mixed housing, I thought we had to have 5 acres or something to master plan. Wasn't there some?
What 5 acres is the threshold for requiring a mix of uses. But there is a zoning area that can be no less than 5 acres. But this being attached to, in other words, if we wanted to create a new area somewhere, it would have to be a minimum of 5 acres. But since this is adjacent to, on both the west and the north, existing zoning, it'd just be adding to that area of zoning.
So looking at the property immediately south, it looks like you have a single family home. This is the Goodwin property just to the south of it.
Yes, that's a good one, so.
Right here.
Yeah.
And then
Then you've
have
got
this
the
here,
rehab center that's right
which is
there.
rehab, and below that, it seems like we're headed into a completely different kind of use. So if we rezone this parcel here, what happens here?
Well, I suppose they would have the opportunity. They do have the same frontage, but a similar depth on 1300 West. So, yeah, they might be in a similar situation, but their only frontage is on 1300 West. So that they could do some limited commercial or office in through that area, or perhaps there would be a future request to look at a rezone on that as well. I don't know. There's always that possibility.
From a planning perspective, are we being wise to do that? To box in a small, narrow, roughly the same size lot with 100 feet of frontage? And that's
Well,
the only.
From a
that's all
planning
that's left?
perspective, you're right. That may not be the best thing to do. However, there's different perspectives that need to be applied here. And one would be this particular property that John Har owns, standing on its own, without him combining a request with his neighbor. What is the best use for his property? This is his request, not staff, so we're reacting to his request. We do feel that since there's adjacency to mixed housing, that it can make sense to do that. Also because there's very strong limitations on his ability to develop that because of setbacks on 100 South there. He's got to have a 40-foot setback before he can place a building. On this property here, they're not going to have those type of setbacks required on the side yard. So they're going to have more usable area within that property than John Harwell because of the adjacency to the road.
Will there be any requirements down the road for site planning where there's access allowed or designed in between the properties?
Well, that could be done, yes. So we have not yet received a site plan for that. If this is indeed to be a mixed housing or residential property, and this remains as it is today, commercial, we would not require that kind of connection. If the zone changes for some reason and we're able to anticipate what they want to do, yes, we would do that. But we can't always plan for what future development might bring in.
So my concern always is, so that lot's contiguous to that housing, then that lot's contiguous to that housing, then we're just eating away into our commercial or retail area.
I would think it would stop at this one piece here
Well, it's
because
gonna
you,
stop there because we already have something there.
right.
But my concern then is to the east, what's John gonna come in next and then say.
He's
well,
already come up with a couple concepts. He does have larger pieces of ground here that he can work with, even though it's being bisected by the roadway there.
Right.
There are opportunities for commercial which front onto Pleasant Grove Boulevard. So they're not really in the same category as this other piece up here.
could just see us moving from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and then it's, you know.
And how many units was he talking?
6 to 8 units.
Okay. It's a public hearing. Do you want to open it up to the public before we continue? Okay, let's open it up to the public for public comment. If anyone wants to comment on this item, please come up and state your name and address.
Is the applicant present?
John?
Do all these people know that their agenda items are on?
They're told of the date, yes. We have to remind them a lot of times, but
It just seems odd. That they aren't, I don't know. It just seems more and more that we discuss items that the people aren't even here. And at one stage, I know we felt like if they weren't here, then we didn't discuss it.
and that's your option to
Because
continue
we're
it.
discussing this and it's hard to have that communication with the property owner and they're not here.
Right.
I don't know, I would like to see us try to encourage or at least follow up a little bit more that the applicant or the person that we're planning with is here.
So how are they notified, Ken? And at what point are they notified that they're gonna be on the agenda?
We work with them to get on the planning commission agenda, and at that time, we will let them know when it's being scheduled for city council. We try to remember to give them a call the day of. That may not always be occurring, but
Does this fall into the 300-foot notice rule?
yes.
So have the Proctors been notified, the Goodwin?
Yes. And that notification would occur at planning commission public hearing.
So
But not for this one.
did the applicant attend the planning commission meeting?
Yes, he was there.
I sent out notice for the city council.
Did you do them? Okay.
Did any of the neighbors adjacent show up for this discussion?
No, we didn't have any neighbor comment.
Okay, anyone from the public? Anyone at all? Lisa? Yeah.
How are the food trucks? How are the food trucks doing?
Okay. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back up here. Any further discussion?
Quick question for Ken. So you said that the planning commission was unanimous. Is it also staff's recommendation then as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have a strong, yes, we need to do this, since it wasn't our idea and it wasn't planned that way. It does not require a general plan amendment because the general plan looks at the grove zone as one solid. So anything that we do here zoning wise wouldn't require a general plan amendment. But yeah, there was that line planned there initially, but as we draw these straight and pretty lines on our maps, we don't always take into account the exact configuration of lots and how they might be affected. So this kind of flag area of this lot is one of those that perhaps didn't get great consideration. It did seem to make more sense just to follow the streets there for the boundaries. So you've got Proctor Lane on, well, it's actually right here is the corner area for the mixed housing on that side. And then it is, so actually 100 South is the boundary, which doesn't follow down through here. It just kind of goes straight across there. So everything north of this area was planned to be, and is currently zoned, mixed housing. So, and everything south there. But when you do these zoning lines, they don't always follow master road plans and such, where this one just kind of cuts right through there.
So our project to the north of that actually has retail in the.
On the
part of
front
their
there.
project, and is truly a mixed housing. How is that gonna become a truly mixed housing? So it's eliminating any type of retail. because I
Well,
don't
mixed
see-
housing does not infer mixed
Right.
use
I'm sorry,
necessarily.
Mixed use, right. So, but this parcel will not be a mixed use. You're just
No.
wanting to change it to mixed housing.
Well, he would have the opportunity regardless to do commercial on that property. The only thing the zone change does is allow him as an option to look at housing, whereas otherwise currently he does not have that option.
As far as commercial and retail is pretty limited on parking space.
Yeah.
correct?
So for retail parking, there's 7.5. We looked at the, after figuring out all of the setback requirements and such. Sorry. all the setback requirements for this, leave an area of about 1,500 square feet for a commercial building, which would require 7.5 parking stalls per, well, I'm sorry, 50 per 1,500 square foot unit. So he would have a series of those. Whereas on the residential, it's only 2.5 per residential unit. So there's a considerable difference in the parking requirement
So
on those.
7.5 stalls on 1,500 square feet, is that similar to like a Jimmy John's?
That could be similar to
Well,
that.
look at the parcel to the south, where you've got the rehab center. That kind of gives you an idea of one type of use. And if you were to combine the black square with the parcel right below it, it's about the same size.
Right.
So you could have something in that range or larger on a corner. It comes over to Pleasant Grove Boulevard, or what we're looking at now.
So has there been talks with Mr. Hart, is that his last name, is that correct?
Mhm.
For him at a future date purchasing a property to the south? I mean, I know that obviously there's a phone right now, but has he been in any discussions with?
No, we have not discussed that with him.
I think there's actually a good break with that road going through, because you have the mixed housing to the north, you have that good break that now sets up this area for retail. It is on a corner, it's in front of a road, and I do question as well, where are we gonna draw the line on the mixed housing, the next parcel, I mean, he says right now, he doesn't wanna do this triangular portion with mixed housing. I just don't know where we draw the line. I think it's a good break with the road, keeping it all retail. And I mean, if we're talking like a Jimmy John's or something similar to that size, that seems doable on this parcel. I don't know, it seems like we come up with a lot of reasons to not do retail. I don't know, it seems like there's a lot, the size of the lot, or we can't do parking, or we can't do this, and I know it's not you, but the applicant asking as well, and it just seems like there's a lot of reasons why we can't do retail, and now all of a sudden, we've zoned out the retail when it might be some creative thinking, it might be some waiting for another parcel to open up, and there could be some more options. And I think that instead of just envisioning one parcel for one property owner, we do have to look at the entire parcel as a whole as to what it could be. Instead of, I think, selling ourselves short on, even though it's 1 acre, we have the opportunity now to possibly have another piece of retail, and I just don't know where we're gonna draw the line, because it almost doesn't make sense to do just this mixed housing, and then the whole rest of it is retail. That seems a little bit out of place to me as well, and I just think at some point we've got to draw the line on the vision that we're having with mixed housing. So that's my thoughts.
Was John never approached with developing with the Robinson property, or going in with that in some type of master planning, or working together somehow? I know he's had that property for a long time. And
Well, because the road divides the two pieces there, I don't think that there was consideration for that.
Okay, further discussion?
My thoughts are, I'm sensitive to Cindy's expressed concern about the erosion of our retail. However, on the recommendation of the planning commission and staff's recommendation, I'm comfortable with this proposal. I think that there is, the delineation has been made there. The applicant's requesting this for their own property. There's other plans for the triangular piece that will involve more retail. So I'm comfortable on the strength of recommendations to move forward with this, and would be willing to vote that way.
That's why I asked about the curvature of the road, it's gonna take in the questions of parking for retail, commercial.
Well,
If it limits it or not.
The actual alignment of the road will be done as it is needed to be developed with the development of adjacent properties. I mean, there's a little bit of leeway as to how the bend works.
So Ken, based on the model, again, of the Jamie John's, kind of that little area right out in front of Walmart, the new neighborhood Walmart. Could we could have 4 or 5 of a similar type of use, either a small restaurant, a small office space in this area based on the size of the lot, is that correct?
Well, I don't want to say that something like Jimmy John's could go in because.
And I'm not talking specifically Jimmy John's.
Okay,
like kind of
or that type of development is what I'm saying, because the depth of the building that Jimmy John's is in, plus the parking and setback area in front of it, it exceeds what we have available here. So yes, could some kind of commercial go in there? Yes. Is it viable for most types of small business ventures, such as where Jimmy John's is? I don't know. It would be more limiting as far as I can see.
And then if the other piece did open up, that would be even more viable.
Well, absolutely. But then you've got questions of ownership and whether or not that's ever considered to be a developable situation that the two property owners want to enter into.
So here, it seems fairly clear, Mr. Hart would have two large parcels, about 4 acres each, I think, for some kind of commercial development, like he has on this side where he sold this piece to Curtis Minor, and then there's a health property on the other side. This piece here, yes, it is adjacent to a development here, but now you end up with this parcel here, which seems like it's going to be limited as far as access to right here. Now, we don't have a site plan yet. So we're
No, we
talking
don't
about
have a
zoning.
vicinity plan either.
Well, vicinity plans we have prepared for residential development. As far as commercial proposals and development, vicinity plans in the Grove Zone, we don't have that.
Well, maybe we need to. It's hard to really see and kind of get a grasp of what's gonna happen. I mean, yeah, the road's there. Where is that road gonna be? What kind of frontage? I think we need to look at having some vicinity plans with these. So we're not developing 1 acre here, 1 acre there, 1 acre there, and then let's make this work because this works, because he doesn't have frontage. But, it's just becoming a jigsaw puzzle.
That's the struggle you have when you're in a large area of either undeveloped or lesser than its potential developed property with a lot of different owners. Now, if you had a large tract of land that was under control of one property owner, it'd be so much easier to do vicinity plans, master plans, those type of things. But having these individual lots with individual property owners who have different ideas of how and when, if ever, they're going to develop, it's hard to do that.
But I think we need to stick to the vision. I think it makes it easier in determining what can go on these parcels. We want to stick to the vision. The vision right now is that it's 1 acre of the Grove Zone commercial sales, and we'd be changing that to mixed housing. So now the vision's changing from commercial sales to housing. And I think if we're consistent with our vision, then when these parcels come up, we're gonna be able to have an easier time making a decision about what it should be. And I don't know, it's just frustrating. I don't know if I can right now vote for more mixed housing. And I see this entire parcel at some point becoming all commercial, especially with that road going through and connecting. And on Proctor, you've got a lot of mixed housing to the north, which I think would help that retail. I don't know, that's not my vision of what I have down there. I think once we allow that falling parcel to go in, I just don't know where we're gonna stop. I mean, he says right now it's retail, that's why I wish the applicant was here for that triangular portion. But he could come in requesting another zone change, and I don't think that's the best use when it possibly could be commercial. I mean, right now, we have a lot of issues in our city, roads, public safety, facilities in general. We need an increase of revenue, and that mixed housing is not gonna bring that to our city. So every time we zone out another piece of retail, component or parcel, that revenue is now gone permanently from the city. And there's too many needs in the city to zone that out any longer.
So it's currently commercial.
Mhm.
This is a request to rezone.
Right.
So you can say yes or no. So,
So we
I'm
have.
trying to make my case so everyone else will vote.
Is this
Really?
Ken, is this projected? Because if so, it's gonna come off.
So the red is broad as the curve can be made.
What?
The red represents as broad as the curve can be made. And here's the southern edge of that red, and it's a little hard to see. The black is what the Robinson Property Development. This is their concept they first brought in. This doesn't really line up over here, so that's really out. The black lines here were me looking at, okay, can we break that curve any to try to, I was trying to minimize the impact on the Robinson property. So right now, their proposal is to do pretty much the red crosshatch. And so as you come down here, so John's rezone request ends right there. So it starts to get clipped in that corner just a little bit.
That's gonna open up some pretty nice frontage, Daniel. Here's mine. So I see some really nice frontage coming in there for commercial.
Yeah, a lot of good frontage, not a lot of good depth on his property.
Would be if they worked together, but we can't force
Certainly.
them, I know.
Right.
Well, we're not talking about forcing, we're talking about rezone, right?
Right.
So we currently have commercial. The question is, the applicant would like this rezone.
Okay, I'm
What do
ready
you
to
guys
go.
want to do? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion that we deny. Where is it? Which one are we on? C? That we deny ordinance 2015-23 to rezone 1 acre of land from the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict to the Grove Zone Mixed Housing Subdistrict on property located at 100 South, 1300 West.
Okay, we have a motion to deny by Cindy. We have a second by Sid. By voice, Ben.
I vote nay on the strength of the planning commission and staff's recommendation.
Okay, Sid.
Right.
Vote yea.
So
Yes,
vote
I like
was
that.
yes.
Yes.
Cindy.
Yep.
Eric.
Nay.
Nay. It's a tie.
You need to vote,
Oh,
Mike.
I vote no.
Go no on the denial or go no on the,
So what's that?
you're voting no on the
No
denial.
Yeah, I'm voting no on the denial.
Which, for layman's terms, means it has been approved. The zone change has been approved.
No, they need to
No.
make another motion.
They
They
need to-
have
So that means that motion dies.
Denial died.
Okay, denial died. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll make a second motion.
Okay.
I will move, council and mayor, that we adopt ordinance 2015-23 to rezone 1 acre of land from the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict to the Grove Zone Mixed Housing Subdistrict on property located approximately 100 South, 1300 West in the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Ben and a second from Eric. Okay, draw my little box. Yes, no. Okay. That's right. Cindy?
Nay.
Nay. Eric?
Yes.
Sid?
No.
And Ben?
Yes.
I vote no. So both motions have failed. Send it back
We got a
to
motion
the
for that.
applicant. What?
We gotta make a motion for that too. Continue it.
Yeah, both motions have failed. I think we need to send this back for
Does that,
discussion.
does that not just deny the zone change?
Well, effectively what you did was deny the zone change. However, if you want to have it come back with the applicant here to discuss it again, then you can make the motion to do that.
Mayor and council, I move that we continue item C as previously read to a date uncertain, indefinite date, and request that a special instruction be offered to the applicant that we would appreciate the presence here.
Okay, we have a motion to continue.
Second.
We have a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I don't know what's happening, but yes.
Okay, motion carries. It's
Yes.
continued.
We're continuing it today.
Yeah.
So
Come back.
is that all that you're looking for, is just to have the applicant here so you can have a face-to-face discussion?
Well, at this point in time, I mean, you have two council members that are not in favor of rezoning to mixed housing. You have two council members that are willing to do the rezone, and it's mixed.
I just want to make sure there wasn't anything else you wanted besides just having the applicant.
At this point, I think that
We
the
need
best we
Diana
can
to
do
say
is get another meeting with the applicant. My preference, if we were gonna redirect this, would be to have a meeting with John and express our concerns. The concerns are, I think, multifold. Expanding the mixed-use housing into the commercial zone, leaving a parcel of land roughly the same size with limited access to the south, pushing the road clear off his property to maximize his development without considering the full development that's going on in the area. I mean, we need to work this out a little bit.
And talk to the Goodwins.
And have a discussion with the Goodwins about future development. We have other parcels of land in our city where it's the exact argument that comes in after we've done one of these. Somebody gets landlocked, and we're not planning for the future. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
And can we have a discussion about having the applicants here? I mean, I know we can't force people to attend, but
We can discuss it, yeah.
how do we
Maybe
encourage and
we get
whatever.
confirmation from them if they're coming. If they're not coming, maybe move the agenda item for
Or
the date
ask
until they
them.
can come.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how badly you want to have the applicant for that discussion
Well,
that night, you can look at it and say, I want to discuss this until the
They're here.
applicant's here.
you know,
Otherwise, if
no-
it's no big deal, you can move forward.
Yeah.
It's always been the council's option to continue if the applicant's not here.
Okay.
I don't think it's essential. My own perspective is it's valuable. It's in their own interest to be here, but it's not essential.
Okay, so we got through item 9C, continue. Item 9D is a public hearing to consider for adoption of ordinance 2015-24, amending the Pleasant Grove City Code section 10-14-24-3-E to remove the requirement for drive aisles, divided parking areas of 100 spaces, 55,000 square feet or more, and to remove the requirement to install a 6-foot sidewalk along the side of the integral drive lanes, internal drive lanes. And Daniel is present. Ken, are you going to introduce?
Yeah, I'll introduce it and then I'll turn it over to Daniel. You can further the discussion. Again, the requirement to put in a drive, not just a drive aisle, but an access road basically through developments is found only in the interchange subdistrict. We do not require that in any other commercial zone in the community. So the reasoning for that, I'm not sure how that ended up. But as we looked at the concept plan for Valley Grove Development as represented by Daniel with their the St. John's Development Company, that this was providing a bit of heartache for them. And I will show you what we have there. So this is their concept plan. It is not a site plan at this point, so it's subject to change. But what we have is this drive aisle here in red that goes right through. And so you'll see on both sides significant landscaping and ability to have sidewalks through here. So this is the type of drive aisle that we're looking at as normally being required in the code. So you've got this area northeast of it. You've got this other area that's kind of south and northwest, and then this is south and east of that roadway. So you've got this planned roadway. Some of it is working right in through here. It's planned to extend northwards to North County Boulevard. This is Pleasant Grove Boulevard, freeways down here. So you'd have this bisecting of this required drive aisle through there. And then the idea was that, well, perhaps we'll have one coming through here. So I think if they are able to get permission from UDOT, that would be their preference, is to create that type of a drive aisle through there. That is not yet something that they have confirmation on their ability to do. So without having that, this is their planned way of providing the parking that it would be required for these types of buildings through here. Again, commercial, professional office buildings, they have a higher parking requirement. So there's some significant parking needs in through this area. The requirement is approximately, it says in the code, approximately 100 would be the threshold for requiring these types of dividing drive lanes through a parking lot. This area exceeds fairly significantly. I think it's approximately 150 parking stalls. So it's not really approximately 100. So that's where that type of requirement of splitting this area up with this type of a drive lane that could have sidewalks and landscaping and all that be placed in there. We've got some other examples. Well, let's see, I wanted to point out the difference of this blue one here. This one here is a drive lane that doesn't have the sidewalk or landscaping on both sides. You've got parking planned just right up adjacent to the building. Then you do have some landscape islands on the other side there, but it wouldn't fit the full requirement of the code as presently stated as far as this one would. So this is the requirement that we're trying to, or that is being requested to be removed, to come right through the middle through here. Just to show what we have in other locations in the community. doTERRA, they have some long drive aisles with interior here, but they have the standard drive aisle that doesn't necessarily have landscaping and sidewalk on both sides, but it still provides that drive aisle access coming up into the building from both sides through here. You look at their parking lot that they've got a portion of it developed currently, and then they're expanding to be like this. They do have some significant aisles going through there, and yet they don't have the full landscaping and sidewalk on both sides. So again, this is the difference between a drive aisle that's just providing greater access into a parking lot versus an actual road, interior road type drive aisle that has landscaping and sidewalk on both sides. So so we do have that existing with doTERRA. Then also with the Grove Creek development, you have this type of a drive aisle coming into the building there, whereas everything else does not meet that same category. It's only this center one. You look at the parking through here, there's approximately 200 or so parking stalls in through this area that are not divided up by this type of a drive lane. This would have that type going on through here, and yet you still have some significant parking areas going on over there. So I think in looking,
on the right don't exist.
Currently they do not. You're right. This is a master plan for the development.
Is it required where those two are?
According to and why we did not pick up on that requirement for this area down through here, I'm not sure. That didn't come forward when this was developed through here. This would kind of match that requirement only through the middle of the buildings, but it does not actually stretch through that whole area and through there. So it wouldn't necessarily divide that up as per the code requirement.
So Ken, we're kind of saying that we've got this one corner in our entire city that has a requirement that's not imposed anywhere else in the city.
Exactly.
So is there a reason to drag it out? Does anybody see a need to have a?
I know that Ben questioned the need for having these types of divisions in a large parking lot. I guess I just wanted to show that we do have some existing parking lots, both in this sub-district zone and outside of it, that were not developed according to that seem to work.
Yeah, my question was more an abstract philosophical one over whether there was some rationale that was why this was our ordinance, and if we could increase the number to 200 lots rather than 100 and meet the needs of the applicant and still meet whatever rationale existed at one time. If there's really no rationale, I have no objection to getting rid of the requirement in its entirety, or I'm also have no objection to increasing the number, even if that puts it out of the realm of practical application ever. So I'm comfortable.
It's a public hearing. Let's open it up to the public.
Did you want to turn over that?
Yeah, if we need to, we'll ask Daniel.
He's here, I think he needs to.
Just for you, Cindy.
Just for I need to hear from Daniel.
And so everybody knows Ken is not on my payroll. He did a good job selling this. No, I really don't have anything to add.
Thank you very much.
If there are any questions.
Yeah, no, sorry. Can we just kind of give us an update, like timeline, where we're at with the project in general, just kind of an update in general about the Long Park project?
September 15th.
The quicker
Yeah,
he's gonna
let's-
get to
Let's
Never mind.
stay on task and get this issue resolved.
Okay.
Okay.
Public, do you have any comment on this particular ordinance? Proposal is to get rid of this rule. It's the only place where it exists, and we can't figure out why. Okay, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back up here. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion we adopt ordinance 2015-24, amending the Pleasant Grove City Code section 10-14-24-3-E to remove the requirement for drive aisles dividing parking areas of 100 spaces, 55,000 square feet or more, and to remove the requirement to install a 6-foot sidewalk along the sides of internal drive lanes.
A motion by Sid, second by Eric, by voice Ben.
Yes.
Sid.
Yes.
Eric. Yes. Cindy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Move on to item E, public hearing to receive comments on the proposed Pleasant Grove City fiscal year 2014-15 budget amendment. We discussed this last week, and I think it was also online. I saw the
Yes, it's
stuff
online for about 10 days or so. So
But do we still get hear from Daniel?
We can hear from Daniel, yeah.
All right.
You want to hear from
Yeah,
him now?
Sorry,
Some
Dean.
updates.
Yeah.
Okay. Daniel.
I mean, he's kind of here. I mean, let's. Okay, well, if you want to do it later, but I'm just getting kind of excited, so.
September 15th.
Awesome.
Great,
Put it on your calendar.
Boom. Happy birthday. Now, we actually had a big powwow earlier this week. I guess it would have been yesterday. They bleed together with the whole development team, general contractor, engineers, to establish the schedule. The city has been phenomenal in supporting what we're doing. I think, as I said from day one, the delays would probably come from us, St. John Properties, wanting to make sure that we got the plan right. I think we're willing to spend a little bit more time and a little bit more money to make sure that we don't rush through a process and then have regrets. One of the changes is where some of those central green spaces, we were trying to consolidate them more so we could do more park amenity, and mostly in the southern portion, we were able to grow the park size almost twofold by arranging some of the parking and getting better pedestrian access to those green spaces. All our building pads and square footages are unchanged from a site plan, but now that the site plan is dialed down, I think we're trying to get in a submittal to the city sometime in the next 2 weeks. We have one plan that's lagging and we don't want it to hold up the rest of the submittal, but we haven't made any progress on our landscape plan yet because it's hard to do a landscape plan when you don't have a site plan. And per the checklist for the site plan submittal, you're supposed to have that landscape plan. So we're kind of in this process of how quickly can we get a submittable landscape plan so that's not holding up everything else. Obviously, we don't want to waste anyone's time reviewing non-complete stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. It's getting buttoned up, but our hope is, final approvals and some dirt flying sometime in September. That allows us to hopefully have utilities in and asphalt down before we hit winter. That's the big kind of hurdle from a timing standpoint. But from our standpoint, we'd rather spend a little bit more time and get it right than trying to just get something on the ground.
Great.
Is that all right?
Yep, I'm great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
No problem.
Back to our public hearing on the revised budget.
sure. So we went over these last week, and as I think someone pointed out or asked in the open session. So this is an amendment to this year's budget, the budget that ends today. It's nothing related to next year's budget. We periodically throughout the year do some budget amendments as things happen, and this is just the final one for the year. So I'm going to kind of just do what I did last year. If anybody wasn't here, the first 5 items on here are really budget changes. Everything else after that are just related to grants and other monies that the city's received and authorizing us to spend them. But just for everybody's benefit. So the first 2 on there are related to Shannon Field. We had a fairly lengthy discussion last November, December on that, and we proceeded with that. I thought I had done this budget amendment earlier, but looking through my records, I had not. So We have 1.4 million to construct Shannon Fields, most of that coming from park impact fees, but some of it coming from the sale of the property up at Battle Creek Park. The third item just says internal use of city utilities. We've talked about this a little bit, that we need to start having the general fund pay the utilities for the water and storm drain and things that they use. And that was the whole discussion of implementing that franchise fee to kind of make that a revenue neutral thing. But this is just to put that in the budget the way it is. Item 4 is the litigation that we have with the SSD. We've incurred some additional costs there. And then number 5 is just the fact that the Children's Youth Theater has raised $8,000 more than budgeted, and this just allows them to spend that. All of the other items, there's police grants, public safety grants, even some donations like the Panda fundraiser that the library did, all of those types of things where we've had some additional money raised for a specific purpose, and this just authorizes it to be spent for that purpose. So the budget amendments on there is just those items.
So to summarize them, everything that we spent had a corresponding revenue.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Were there any surprises?
No, I think, I don't think any of this is a surprise. I guess the litigation with TSSD, that is coming from the sewer fund, but it's not, so there's not really a revenue to offset that, but it's just a cost of the sewer fund. So everything else has an additional revenue associated with that.
Okay. Do you have questions for Dean?
Appreciate it, Scott, sending the motions for summary judgment to Tina and I know it's. Good presentation.
Let's open it up to the public. If you have any comments on the budget amendments, please come up and express them now. And if they did have concerns, what could we do about it? Sorry.
It ends today, right? Last day of the fiscal year?
Today is the last day of the fiscal year.
You gonna comment? No.
Is it a member of the public? You can comment.
Mom, okay.
Would you like me to?
We'll close the public hearing.
I think it's a great idea, Molly Angela.
All right, any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
It's just a public hearing for comments. There's not an action.
The next
The next item,
item is
10A.
your resolution.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, we're done with 9E, 10A, right?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt resolution 2015-024, adopting the amended 2014-2015 budget and providing for an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion by Ben and a second by Eric, by voice. Ben?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks,
Okay.
Dean.
Thank you very much. Item 10B, to consider for approval a 2-lot subdivision called Bella Grace on property located at approximately 24 East 100 North in the downtown village zone.
Yes.
Formerly known as Allred's Downtown. Applicant is Steve Allred. He is in contract to sell this property and
Sit
development.
up here so we could all see you. No?
Where we grill people.
So Steve's development has received an amended site plan recently by the Planning Commission, which just slightly varies from what you saw previously. Instead of having commercial ability on the stacked units on 100 North, they've changed those to be strictly residential. So there's only 4 units along Main Street at this time that will have bottom floor commercial. Everything else will be residential. Otherwise, the site plan is the same. Townhomes throughout this area, 28 units. So it's following the master plan that was previously adopted by the city. So,
Owner occupied.
I'm sorry?
Owner occupied.
They currently, it is not scheduled to be owner occupied strictly. They will have individual units that they can develop and sell, but there will be ability to rent as well. I will let you, I know where you're going with that, and something that we may want to address in our code. I was informed that there is a HUD financing restriction that our desire to have owner occupancy regulated is provides financing difficulties for properties. So it's not something that we have a lot of ability to work with, but something we'll want to look at.
So is there a percentage of what can they get housing? I know that was a problem when we toured in Bountiful a couple of years ago, and we kind of got the idea from that
Mm-hmm.
for this. And I know I think the person that's now developing on Main Street, Knowlton.
Yeah, Eric
actually
Jensen.
mentioned that there was a problem with the housing and the financing and loans and such.
Right.
So is there a percentage? Do they all have to be that? Or how best do we understand what their restraints are a little bit as far as?
I think it's the requirement of a certain percentage that there's a
So
difficulty
some
with.
can be owner
Some-
occupied, but they
certainly.
don't all in order to get the loaning.
Right, right.
The
Financing,
financing.
right,
But we don't know what that is.
right. So what they've chosen to do is to develop this property based on financing abilities, since these four will have retail or commercial on the bottom floor, and will most likely be split up into individual owner properties. At this time, they're just dividing the property into two lots, one that would include commercial, the rest that does not.
How many units are there?
28.
Could someone go in and buy a block of units and then rent them out? You know what I'm asking?
Could they do that?
Could they?
Yes.
Or will there be one person that's organizing all the rentals, or how does that work with the whole financing?
Well, okay, I don't know if I can answer all those questions, but as far as their ability currently with this platting, it has the ability to have two separate owners, one for the commercial units and one for the rest. If they want to divide it up further, condominiumize the plat so that they can sell individual units, they can do that. Not yet, but they can bring forward a plat that can be approved for that. Yes.
So with respect to the two-lot subdivision, does any of this apply, what we're discussing?
I guess the question was, are we requiring a certain percentage of ownership, which we have a difficulty doing. But so basically, no, we have the two opportunities for ownership with the two different lots.
And at what point would we, if we needed to, discuss the issues that Cindy is raising?
I think what we may want to do is have a separate item on that, a proposed ordinance amendment or whatever, perhaps even explore further with financing experts on what exactly we could or should have as far as city code.
We don't want to limit.
Yeah, perhaps we could make a specific bullet point for that next discussion.
Yeah, it's great. No,
Any other?
I'm excited about it.
Okay, any other discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion for approval of a two-lot subdivision called Bella Grace on property located at approximately 24 East, 100 North in downtown Village Zone, mixed use overlay.
And I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Eric, a second by Ben, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Just as a bit of information, it's my understanding that the new owners, developers, Lotus Development, are very anxious to get started on this. They have been waiting through our noticing period so that they can get their plat finalized and ready to go. They are wanting to get started.
So is a monkey off your back? Remember that when we come in for Tumble recommended. Oh, he'll remember it, all right. What?
I want to say to Steve, honestly, is he's been through a lot. He's been patient. We've worked through a lot of issues, a lot of meetings, a lot of whatever, to try to figure this out. So I think it's become a very win-win situation for Steve, the new property owners, and for Pleasant Grove. Thank you.
Thank you,
The
Steve.
new people will be very good as well. They're wanting to do more in the community. They really like
Yeah.
Pleasant Grove and would like to do some more commercial and developing. because we like
Right.
doing things down there, so.
Thanks,
Great.
Steve.
Thank you.
All right. We're on item 10C, to consider for approval the Grove Creek 2 commercial site plan for a professional office building on 2.22 acres located approximately 2168 West Grove Parkway in the Grove Zone Interchange Subdistrict. And now you're going to tell us who it is, right?
Let me just say that I don't believe the applicant is here tonight because we did have to continue the plat that goes along with the site plan. And although there was not a specific need for continuing the site plan, it was the plat's noticing requirement that caused us to do that. And the applicant knows that that was being continued in next week. We may as well continue this to next week because they are the same project.
Motion to continue.
So moved.
No, you can't make a move. You make a move.
Okay.
Yeah, you moved.
Yeah, I moved.
Oh, I
Motion by
thought
Ben,
the mayor.
second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. It is continued. Item D, 10D, to consider for adoption an ordinance 2015-25, amending Title 5, Section 1D, subsection 7, restraint by owner, requiring animals to be restrained at all times and providing for an effective date. Tina?
Mayor and council, this item is before you at actually the request of the city council. If you'll recall, a month or so ago, an individual came in and had an issue on the canal trail with regard to an unrestrained animal. And currently, our ordinance allows animals to either be restrained or under the direct supervision of their owner. Because of this incident and other incidences like it, I was directed to remove the language that allowed for the direct supervision and require restraint at all times. And so that's what's there.
I think we've evolved, right? 35,000 is a little different than what we've had before, so kind of makes sense.
And it eliminates any confusion as to what's allowed on the trail as well.
How are we going to publish this? How are we going to get the word out?
We can put it in the newsletter.
Well, I'll help spread it.
I'm sure.
But I like the newsletter idea.
Banner on a plane.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, right? I'm just saying. It's one thing to pass a law, it's another thing to get the law communicated in a fair and equitable manner that everyone has the opportunity to
We
comply.
can put it on the
We
website,
can do a
notice.
slider on the
and-
website, the
yeah.
newsletter.
Well,
Okay.
we have an enforcement policy with our police department where we don't cite for the first some period of time and say for a period of time, we'll just issue warnings
Right off the bat.
rather than citing.
This is normally a complaint-only type of a citation, so it's not something that the officers are out actively looking for people that don't have their dogs on a leash. It's normally in response to a complaint. Somebody's walking down the sidewalk, someone doesn't have their dog on a leash, and the dog charges them or bites them or whatever. So I don't think
I don't
we,
think it makes a lot of sense to enact
Yeah.
a law and then say we're not going to enforce it.
Right. Can we put signs up on the canal though? Just so that wherever people go, they know that animals have to be on a leash.
well, that was the part of the confusion, I think, is because it was our understanding that the policy on the canal already was that they had to be on a leash. But the only place that the signs are that I can see, the short little distance that I walk on the canal, which is about 2 or 3 miles, they have those pet stations periodically on each section. And at the pet station, there's a sign that says, you have to keep your dog on a leash and clean up after your pets. But there isn't any other signage informing people that that's the case on the canal. So part of what was intended with changing the ordinance was to make sure that it's consistent, not just on the canal, but the city as a whole, as the law. So we can certainly talk to Deanna about putting up additional signs to notify people that and the rule hasn't changed, it's just clarified.
As a dog owner,
Could we get garbage cans put more frequently on the trail, because they tell you to clean up after your pet, but then you've got to carry poop your whole walk. Thank you, Sherry.
Well, if you would just huck it over the fence.
Straight from there.
Live.
On streaming.
Dio, can we get some signs put up on the canal trail?
Sorry, I missed the beginning.
Well, we're talking about the leash law for all animals. Can we get some signs put up along the canal trail? We'll work on other notifications, but that might be a real good place for people to understand that this is a requirement citywide.
May I have a suggestion? Because sometimes I think we get oversigned with
Yep.
signs in it. There's about 10 pet stations. And so I think if there's a sign there, I don't know if it needs to be bigger or something that's added to the sign, that's possible. But I think those are the locations for the signage. Sometimes I think when there's too much signage, it kind of gets lost in the,
Like a stop sign?
yeah. So I don't know if we want to add two or just somehow add to the existing signs that are along the pet stations. I don't know, maybe, because that, they're obviously stopping there to, you know, get a little garbage sack or whatnot. So I don't know if it needs to be bigger, or maybe we could just add to those instead of adding additional signage, because there is about 10 pets. Is that right? About 8 to 10 pet stations along the canal?
I don't know how many, but I'm sure there's probably
there's
that
gonna be
many.
more
There's
now,
one on
Sherry.
each section.
I just want garbage.
Oh, there's 6?
Can you get a grant for that?
Maybe just do a temporary frame sign that can be moved. Just so you
That's a
can-
good idea.
Great idea. We allow those in our city?
The city's gonna go.
It's on the county's trails.
Can we get the sign ordinance changed? Sorry.
I like that idea. The temporary.
We'll do some, we can talk to Dion and do some kind of temporary signage. I think that's a better idea too as well, not just,
And then question one, it says restraint. So what if it's in the person's yard?
no, restraint means it has to be on a leash of
At all
some
times,
sort.
even in the person's
It's
yard?
defined in the ordinance.
Yeah, if you have a fence, that's okay. but
Yeah.
Because that's considered
Animals
a
getting
restraint.
out.
Right.
Problem. So restraint.
Before we get too far down the road of signs and other issues, I want to make sure this council agrees that this is a good move in general. I mean, I think philosophically, there's a discussion that can be had that having the dog in direct supervision, we have other protections. We have the common law for, you know, injuries if the dog does actually hurt someone. We've got other protections. Is it unnecessary regulation?
No, because if it's my child and there's a dog loose and they get bit, I'm gonna be pretty upset. So I think this is for the safety and well-being of the residents, and I think we need to be proactive as a city in establishing a I mean, this is serious if someone gets bit or hurt by a dog that's not leashed, and I think everyone thinks their dog is well-behaved, but you never know how they're going to react to kids, other adults, other dogs, other situations, and I think we're being proactive in preventing injuries or preventing serious accidents from those, and I think we have to take a look at the safety and well-being, and to me, this is what that is. That could have been an ugly case that happened on the canal with the biker and the dog, and I think we're looking to avoid situations like that. So as a parent and I'm a dog owner as well, I'm fully in favor of trying to protect, you know, people through on both ends.
So I want to add to what Sid said, but from the opposite side, as a grandfather of a dog. When he got out last night, I actually thought of one of my neighbors that might beat him to death because of whatever. And I think it's my responsibility to keep him on a leash and prevent him from getting out. So it's also for the protection of my pet. Running in the street, getting hit, it's my fault. There were a couple of people that wanted to chime in. I'm getting pointing in two different directions.
I
Does
show
council
up on
wanna take
public
input?
comment.
Okay, I'm gonna start over here because you were first.
No, all I was gonna say is, like, I wrote
Ma'am,
down.
ma'am, come up to the microphone to the podium.
Tell us your name and
Ma'am with
address.
the dark tan who's just been to Hawaii. Can you
Ma'am?
come up here, please?
You just here for the comment.
Amy Lindstrom, 1160 East 100 North. Do not toilet paper my house. Because I just gave it out. Okay, so I would just say so I road bike and I'm usually going, well, it depends. The worst problem is along the base of the foothills on Murdoch Canal. And there will be 3 or 4 dogs and just a man walking, I always see him. So when you're going like, usually that stretch about 23 miles per hour. So you're going along 15 to 25 miles an hour on your bike and a dog comes out. It's seriously terrifying. And my uncle just had a 5-year-old dart in front of him and he swerved to miss the kid, fell, broke his clavicle, totaled his bike. So it's a pretty serious issue, and you never know with a dog because you can't predict their behavior. So if you're, and some dogs are more prone to chase after moving things. So, and I get that a lot. Like I almost come to a complete stop until they pass me because it scares me so dang bad because you never know. And I don't want to fall. Anyway, that's all.
Are you suggesting a leash law for children as well?
Yes. Please? No, not really. No, I'm usually, but I don't run into kid problems because it's usually 5 a.m. But there are a lot of people that early that will walk and their dogs just kind of roam free. So that's all.
Jason Hunter, 680 East, 300 North. Is it not already a law that you need to have your dog on a leash on the canal trail?
It's not. We're trying to be more generic.
But on the trail, it's not a law?
It is on the trail already, but it's not clear to some of the residents that that's a requirement. And our ordinance for the rest of the city was inconsistent with the policy and the rule for the trail. So it created some problems. There were dog owners walking their dogs on the trail. They were going under what the city ordinance currently says, which is they just have to be under direct supervision or on a leash. And so this is just clarifying and making it consistent across the board. So everybody knows no matter where you're at, trail or city, your dog needs to be restrained.
So then the question is, an electronic fence. That is fine?
Yeah, it's
It's a restraint. So then an e-collar would also be considered restraint?
As long as it works.
And I'm good?
Yeah. And it's not just for us, right? Because the trail actually runs, 17 miles or something? And my wife takes off with that grand dog and goes to Lehigh, the rules should apply.
I'm good with that. I agree
Just
with
want
Ben.
clarification.
Well, I agree with Ben that sometimes we do get, if your kid's attacked by a dog, doesn't matter what the city ordinance says. I mean, that dog owner is responsible, right?
Right.
And so sometimes we create additional rules and regulations that don't need to be there. And then it makes it more confusing because, am I limit?
And hopefully that this eliminates that where it's just across the board, canal or parks, streets, wherever you are, your dog has to be restrained. So hopefully that
Well, and
eliminates, at least in our city.
as long as an electronic fence or an electronic collar, something like that counts,
Absolutely.
then I'm good.
Carl Cooney. One thing I would like to add, we're focusing on dogs. I believe per this law, cats fall under the same jurisdiction and same rules.
I think we said pets.
Well, the ordinance says dog right now, restraint, dog or cat, restraint by owner. Dogs and cats are put together.
So my point being, I can have a $40,000 fence and dogs inside of it, but the neighbor thinks it's great to let their cat run. And cats jump 6 foot, $40,000 fences, dogs don't.
Right.
But that, in that education and in the newsletter and things, please include cats. A lot of people think because you don't see cats on leashes and that they don't need to restrain their cat. But cats crapping in people's yards and doing things that cats do.
Aren't they a lot worse?
They are a lot worse.
I hate cats.
So, anyway, I just wanted that, if we're gonna put a public notice out, please include cats.
So Tina, that would be a change in the ordinance as we read it.
No, it's in the
Oh,
new
it
ordinance.
is.
Yeah, it's all cats and dogs.
Oh, it says cats, wait.
The new ordinance does.
And just for your information, everybody, we do have instances with neighbors where they have problems with cats jumping fences. And there are cages that you can check out, so we do prosecute people for letting their cats run and creating nuisance for the neighbors.
Kira Harris, 60 Alpine Drive. As far as signage, I kind of just expect to see it like at the trailheads, because that's where we park and that's where we go. I know I've stopped and looked at those signs. It's been a while since I've looked, but and I have a dog, and I've seen the poo stations, and we don't really use them because we carry our own bags, so I haven't really stopped to look and notice that there's a sign there. But but the trailhead is where I would expect to see a posting of the rules, yeah. And I'm not looking for extra rules as I'm going along. I'm kind of thinking that's. So I mean, we've got 2 trailheads in the city.
Yeah.
So I mean that.
For up in the mountain.
No, they're called trailheads, but on the canal. On the canal.
We have multiple.
There's
Every crossing.
well, there's certain places that there's like parking set aside and like
that
bathrooms
people
and
get on at Murdoch or wherever and they go.
yeah.
They don't all enter at a trailhead.
Yeah. But so I know people don't always enter the trailheads, but that's kind of generally where you go to look for regulations, information, maps, that kind of thing. And so those are kind of places that I would expect to see rules posted. And then the other thing was just, I definitely agree with the restraint thing. And it's a safety issue for dogs too. My sister's dog is not dog friendly. And it's a real problem when we're out walking and someone's dog comes running up and we're like, whose dog is this? This dog is not dog friendly. And great, a fight ensues and we're trying to break them up because someone didn't have their dog on a leash and they don't think to call them back.
Right.
And sometimes the dog won't come. They think, oh, my dog has perfect recall. But when there's another dog, recall goes out the window. So.
It's going to clear up a lot of things. I mean, dogs running or cats running into a neighbor's yard, all kinds of things.
Well, assuming people actually follow the cats.
That's why we have animal control.
Yeah.
If it happens, boom.
So, and Tina, is that who they should call when, if something like this happens, they call animal control? Okay.
Okay, so we've had public discussion, we've had council discussion. Are there any other items to discuss?
Yeah, I have one other comment based on Mr. Hunter's point, and maybe we need to discuss whether we want greater clarity in the ordinance and the definitional section about what does qualify as restraint and what doesn't. I don't know if we need something like that, but are we going to categorize e-collars specifically, explicitly in the ordinance or not?
We can. When the ordinance was originally drafted, the electronic collars and electronic fences
Didn't exist.
didn't exist. So I'm certainly willing to look at that and add those to the definitions to make it clear. That's not a problem.
I think that'd be great. I think we need to incorporate that into our motion to.
Can we say restraint?
Well, that's the question I'm asking broadly to us, is does that give adequate notice to the resident that's reading the code, whether or not?
Could we just say
Come in
including
the yard,
e-collar,
or-
it's not electric fence.
Why
So-
don't you just direct me
so
to read
what I'm
the
saying is rather
definitions
than-
to add that in there,
rather than be
not add all that stuff.
Too specific, be general enough so that you do give an example like, but not limited to. It's, you have to have this animal restrained.
Tina, restate that again. Restate that again.
Okay, so if you would like me to take care of adding e-collars, including but not limited to electronic fences, I can do that. I'm happy to do that, but I prefer that it be direction to go back and look at the definition section. I prefer not to put it here right now until I've had a chance to look at it and see where it would best fit. I don't like to
So
draft
are we okay
ordinances on
with
the fly.
this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make the motion we adopt ordinance 2015-25, amending Title 5, Section 1D, subsection 7, restraint by owner requiring animals to be restrained at all times and providing for effective date with the update that Attorney Peterson will make changes to specify the type of restraint to be used.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Sid, a second by Eric. Ben?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yeah.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry.
Been a long
It has to
day.
do with Leon and I.
Okay,
I'm freezing and I keep sending me texts that I'm freezing. and-
you need to wear a sweater.
I mean,
Some of
like,
us can't
like-
take off anymore. All right. Item E, consider for adoption ordinance 2015-26, authorizing the mayor to sign a construct, maintain, operate, upgrade, and relocate. Did I skip something? I did. Authorizing the mayor to sign a franchise agreement and general utility easement with Rocky Mountain Power to construct, maintain, operate, upgrade, and relocate its electrical distribution and transmission lines and related appurtenances, and providing for an effective date. That's why you're here.
Oh my heck, I'm so sorry.
Right, so Mayor and Council, this is an update for our Rocky Mountain Power franchise agreement. They, it actually expires tomorrow, the one that we had before. And it's been in effect since 10 years ago, 2005, I believe. There aren't any changes basically to the agreement, except some very minor ones. It is another 10-year term, which you should be aware of. The only change we really made was to add a requirement for them to get us involved at the design phase of any improvements or major changes that they're making so that we can help coordinate that a little bit better instead of at the time that they're coming in for their excavation permit or whatever. And we have better tree replacement language in terms of every year. I'm sure you know, as city council members, we get phone calls in the spring when they come back and trim the trees, and private property owners are not always happy with the way that they're trimmed. And so there's a little bit of language in there that gives our citizens a little bit more coverage on that issue.
We apply that retroactively. My tree was trimmed a couple of years ago.
Ours are butchered. I wouldn't call them trims.
That's what we wanted to address.
Yeah.
Well, we took care of that with the section that says all utilities must now be underground. Is that right?
We can do that.
It was a joke.
It's already covered. It also says we get to pay for that.
Yeah, I was hoping to take that part out. Okay. Any questions for Tina?
We've been happy with the last 10 years.
Except for the tree trimming
Except for the
issue
tree.
and the planning issue, which we've addressed.
Sounds like smart board planning thing.
And Rocky Mountain's in agreement with that. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a
I
motion.
make the motion to adopt ordinance 2015-26, authorizing the mayor to sign a franchise agreement and central utility easement with Rocky Mountain Power to construct, maintain, operate, upgrade, and relocate its electrical distribution and transmission lines and related
Appurtenances.
appurtenances, whoa, and providing for an effective date.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sid, second by Ben. Cindy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks for coming.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you for waiting. Okay, 10F. To consider for adoption of resolution 2015-025 for environmental stewardship on American Fork Canyon to preserve historic sites, historic recreation, respites and uses, and providing for an effective date. Presenter is Mayor Daniels.
You know that guy?
Did I,
Did you put this on the agenda?
Totally news to you.
I don't actually have an agenda, thing here.
Is it just supposed to take that Scott's one out?
I believe this was supposed to be your explanation of the
What's happening in American Fork?
the snowbird expansion.
We can
And
talk
some of
about
your
where we
meetings,
are,
like,
but
yeah.
I don't have a
Resolution.
resolution.
It's in the packet. It's in my packet.
Scott's one of that.
Could be put together, maybe?
Maybe it's stuck together with something else. I don't see it.
Yeah, I move to continue.
Thank you. Okay,
Well,
so,
well, is this the topic of the Lee's email address? And
yeah, I
it
think,
may deserve some more discussion.
I think we wanna at least discuss the item, but I don't actually have that in front of me to talk about. So there's a group called Mountain Accord. They're primarily out of Salt Lake. They've been working to look into expanding, what's the future of their canyons and their ski resorts. And there's been a kind of oh, you've got a copy, thanks. And you guys have all read this? No?
We have not. I don't
Okay.
think we're ready.
So then I think you should continue. But
I do want the update. Yeah.
there is much confusion right now. I think we all started getting bombarded by citizen email, and then we started getting bombarded by government email, and also civic groups that have organized to protect Canyon, and then those that want to include us in the Mountain Accord discussion. We've just learned that our county commissioners had actually been involved in the process for some time. The mayors, though, were kind of caught within the last 30 days, just very surprised about the whole situation. I think there's a lot more fact coming to light about what's really being proposed with Mountain Accord and with American Fort Canyon. And I think that there's still an active discussion going on about how much say does Utah County, meaning us, the citizens, and us elected people representing the citizens, do we really have a say in this, or is this truly a Forest Service federal government decision, and is it already made? Depending on what you read, you could be persuaded either way. And so I think that what we need to do here, and we've already assigned DO to represent us, to gather the facts and kind of let us know where we're gonna insert ourselves and proceed. I think it might be premature as a council to just launch out and say, not no, but never. We really ought to inform ourselves more about the specifics involved, and then help to spread that information amongst our own residents before we advocate one position or another. Right now, I think we need to just kind of put the brakes and gather information. Dio, do you have anything further to add to that? I know you're digging out, but.
I attended my first meeting, the steering committee was Monday. At that point, they had quite a large discussion on the Mountain Accord and what stance do we have. Then they opened it up actually to public comment, which lasted about an hour. And they decided to pause the American Fort Canyon vision and get some more information on what the county wants to do, what the citizens want to do, and then reevaluate the AF Canyon vision, and mostly focus on informing communities in Utah County on the Mountain Accord proposal. So that's kind of where they're at. I mean, there was monies donated by resorts to the AF Canyon division.
$100,000.
Yeah, $50,000, I think.
Yeah.
The group, the steering committee wants to try to return that money. So there's no really ties. There's a impression from the citizens that because they donate that money, everybody's been bought off. But that was very apparent in the meeting on Monday that that's not the case. Or maybe a few, but I mean, the overall thing was to stop what we're working on and just kind of concentrate on this Mountain Accord thing.
Yeah, the accusations that have been flying are so bordering on criminal that it's kind of just best if we stopped and really attended and found out more and dug in, and then inform ourselves before we take action. At least that's my opinion.
I think it would be wise, I need to figure out who to contact, but I think it'd be wise for us to get someone who's been with this since the beginning, maybe bring in, do this presentation for council.
Alright.
Kind of get us all on the same page.
That's a good idea.
What about someone from American Fork City Council? Because I was contacted by Brad Frost, who wanted to chat about it. And since it's their city, he might have a lot of information that maybe he might be willing to share with us, and it seems, I mean, not necessarily a neutral party, but more neutral than.
So actually Cedar Hills is the one
Oh,
that
is it?
initiated the donations or the request
Okay.
for the study. And so Mayor Gigi has been, he's not the chair, is he?
He is.
Of
Oh,
the
he is.
AF Vision,
Okay.
AF Canyon Vision.
Okay.
But again, there's been so many accusations about what the intent is that.
So who would
We
be
don't
my kind
We
of?
don't know what the
Sean
truth is.
Sanger, who's kind of the staff.
Sean could help us from
Okay.
ag.
I think that would probably be.
Let's do that.
I think Sean would be a good one.
I'd like to hear from Ben McEvans from Mount McCord.
And then the other guy, the environmental guy that's been involved, I'm not sure, it might be Buck. Anyway, can you research that for us, and help us get the right people, and then
Yeah,
put
I'd
that
like
on the
to
agenda?
hear from the advocates on both sides and adversarial kind of hearing from people that are very different perspectives.
One other thing, we had a resident bring up at our Pleasant Grove Irrigation Company board meeting Friday, some concerns with this relative to water rights. So the company board is looking at that. So the city has a strong interest in the water right assets of the company because we use so much of that in our secondary system. So we'll look further into what that means for the irrigation company as well.
Mayor, I think that's the goal of the AFC vision, is to look at environmental, watershed, recreation. It was a whole thing, and then this whole thing with Mountain Accord kind of bounced into the picture, and it's kind of put a hold on all that. But there's a lot of issues up there dealing with the water rights, watershed, everything. So I'll work on somebody coming in presenting.
Yeah, Forest Service. It is pretty bad. The basic premise is Snowbird would like to expand into American Fork Canyon and have some kind of operation. They already own land up in American Fork Canyon, so there's a land swap being proposed. And we're just finding out about it. And the impacts could be anything from, we're gonna have bus routes up and down with restricted access, to the whole thing will be contained privately without any effect on us at all, and we just don't know the truth.
Do
Okay,
you know who drafted the language of the resolution that was in the packet? Where that came from?
I believe it's probably very similar to what I read. I didn't read the whole thing, but very similar to the one that American Fork City Council adopted last week.
okay, now I know what we're talking about.
It did come from American Fork
This, I
City.
asked for this language from American Fork,
Right.
right? Thank you.
All I.
So it is
took
just
out
a
of
discussion, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank
Scott
you.
attached it to his update email on Friday.
Okay,
So
all right,
I move that we don't take action
thank you,
today.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, item 11A. Update from Director Young regarding the Sterling Born conditional use permit. Let me preface this by saying we're not trying to second guess anything. We're trying to get an understanding of what happened, because up until this week, there was an opportunity that we might have been an appellate board last week. And so until that was resolved, we didn't want to have any contact or discussion about it. Now that we understand that it's not the case, then Ken, if you could walk us through, you've given us a couple of emails, so if you could just kind of walk us through the whole thing and how we arrived at where we are today.
Okay, earlier in the year, Sterling Born came forward to the planning commission and requested approval of a conditional use permit to construct his shed. It was approved with waiving the architectural requirements, except for color matching of the home. And the site plan that was attached to that particular conditional use permit showed the location of the shed different from what he ended up constructing. And we also had a concern with the height. So when it came to our attention on a staff level that what was being constructed was not what was approved, we contacted Mr. Bourne and told him, I think we were also alerted by one of the neighbors that there was a concern there. That we contacted him, he came into the office and we told him that what was approved is not what he's doing. So we issued a stop order on his construction. We said we invited him to make application to the planning commission to seek a modification of his conditional use permit, which he did. And so it came forward again recently to the planning commission, and they reviewed his construction situation. They determined that the setbacks that he actually does have still fall within the ramifications of the code, so there's no violations there. It just was not as per what was originally on his site plan map as earlier presented. So they were okay with the location of the new structure. There was still an issue with the actual appearance, construction appearance, and the height of the building. So what they did, and there was quite a bit of public involvement and comments that were given at that hearing. Most of the comments were against approving the modification. However, there was a good amount of neighbors that supported Sterling Bourne in his application and the situation of the new actual situation of the shed. So there was both positive and negative comments offered at the hearing. So ultimately what was approved by the planning commission was that the modification of this conditional use permit was approved, continuing the requirement that a color matching of the shed with the coloring of the home be required, and that a 10-foot vegetation screen would be required along the rear of the shed facing the rear property in that area. So 10-foot screening is what was required. I guess there's some concern or issues about what exactly that means and if some existing planting is meeting that or not. That's something that we may still need to determine. There was a concern about the height, and it was discussed at the planning commission hearing, but not granting any kind of a variance or waiver or whatever to the height. They acknowledged that the shed would need to fall within the code requirements, which is that the shed does not exceed the height of the home. So there was questions both on the staff level and with everybody in the room about what exactly the height of the shed was in relation to the height of the home. Staff had been out there, but it was difficult to assess, being in different locations, exactly what the height difference or similarity was. So it was just mentioned that the shed requirement, height requirement would remain. So there was no alteration or modification granted in that area. So as an explanation, staff mentioned that there were certain things that may need to be done in order for that code requirement to be pursued or achieved. So it was after that that staff went out with Mr. Bourne and did a more detailed analysis of the height of both structures, and did determine that the actual height of the shed, which was initially presented and approved at a lower height, but because of not taking into account the footings and the foundation, what would happen with those and what actually happened when he began constructing, it raised up the actual height of what was originally talked about and approved. So staff did find that there was a difference between the shed as being constructed and the home, and that the shed was actually a little bit taller. And we reviewed the code to determine what his remedies might be, and it was either that the home would have to be raised in height or that the shed would have to be lowered. And it was his choice to raise the home, which he did get approval through the building department to put an eyebrow construction on his roof, which actually raised the height of his roof in part of the home. He had a newer addition of the home, and so he added that to the roof structure of his home. That is how he chose to comply with the code requirement. So I don't know if there's other questions in regards to that, but we have received an application for an appeal of the planning commission's decision. And so it has been scheduled to go forward to the Board of Adjustment on August 20th.
You guys have any questions for Ken?
Does that stop his shed? Or is he still building on it or what?
As we have determined his eyebrow on his roof, making everything come into compliance, there's not a reason to put stop order, so he is going forward with it.
I have a question. What's the definition of a shed? Because it's about a 1,500 square foot building, is that right?
No, shed does not follow any particular size. There are sheds that are humongous. I think it's just a general term that we use. We can call it a shed, we can call it a garage, we can call it a warehouse. It's really just a structure of a certain size.
In the ordinance, it's classified as an accessory building.
Accessory
Is there a
structure.
limit on square footage?
It's not defined on square footage.
No.
Accessory just has to be smaller than the house.
This has to be smaller.
It does
it is.
unless that requirement is waived by the planning commission.
And what were the architectural requirements that were waived?
So any structure that is over 500 square feet in size, accessory structure, would have the requirement to match the appearance, the materials. I'd have to get the exact verbiage, but it's basically the appearance of materials of the main structure. So in other words, if the home has brick on it, then it would be expected that that structure in the rear would also have brick on it. That was one of the things that was waived. However, coloring was another thing that came into that architectural appearance. So
who was it the planning commission that waived that?
yes.
And do we know why it was waived?
Well, I'll tell you, as it was at the planning commission this last time, initially it was, I believe, I'll have to go check, but I believe it was initially approved unanimously. As it came back for request for modification, it was approved 3-4. And that was after, I think, 5 different attempts to make a motion to get it approved. It was very difficult for the body to come to a unanimous, or any kind of majority opinion.
Tina, did you have any additional insight you wanted to add to this?
No, just that I wasn't aware that they actually filed the appeal. The neighbors who are unhappy with the decision had indicated that what all they really want at this point is for the requirement for the 10 feet screening across a tree, a tall trees to screen it better and taller than 10 feet. So I spoke with Scott before he left, and our idea was to get a meeting together with the property owners and see if we can implement that, so that if that's really all they want, then the appeal is sort of unnecessary if we can resolve it a different way.
So we've done, as a city, we've done everything according to the way the law reads, and we've handled everything.
It was noticed by the requirement, 2 requirements for the conditional use permit. One is that any conditional use permit, which it fell into that category because of its size and nature. But also there's another requirement that any shed, any accessory structure that exceeds a certain height, 18 feet, requires notification of property owners within 100 feet, which is actually smaller than the conditional use permit requirement of 300 feet. So, but we did include both of those notices together for the city council or planning commission, so that both the height issue and the other issues of the shed were noticed to the property owners surrounding.
I'm confident that the process was followed in terms of notification. I can't tell you that the city did everything the right way, or else there wouldn't be a basis for appeal, right? So that's still something that the Board of Adjustment needs to make a decision on. The allegation is that the planning commission somehow did not follow our ordinance in granting that permission, so that's a Board of Adjustment call, not mine.
But from your perspective, I mean, we did or didn't follow what we were
Yeah, from
supposed
my
to.
perspective, the Community Development Department and the Planning Commission followed the rules and regulations that they were required to follow.
Okay.
The Planning Commission exercised their discretion in making a ruling on the conditional use permit to begin with, and then also on the issue of the modification of the existing conditional use permit. They had three choices. They could revoke it, they could modify it, they could continue it for further discussion, and they chose to modify it and as per the applicant's request.
So now it switches, and because it's Board of Adjustment, there's a finite set of requirements, burdens, or whatever that have to be met in order to make the case.
Right, it's the applicant's burden, it's the appellant's burden to show that something was not done correctly. There's a threshold burden of being able to allege before you can even file the notice of appeal and be able to point to some ordinance or requirement that was not followed.
As members of the council and as members of the Planning Commission, we're not to attend the Board of Adjustment.
It's a quasi judicial proceeding, and so, no, I would recommend that you not.
What about commenting? Certain full parties email or whatever.
I would prefer that you not comment on the status of the appeal other than to talk about process, because it is a quasi judicial action and the Board of Adjustment will be sitting sort of like a judge and looking at the process and what was done. And so I wouldn't want that to be prejudiced prior by any comments by a city council member or a planning commission member about their feelings.
It's my understanding that, without looking at code again, but I thought there was a provision in there that planning commission would have to be notified of the appeal, would have the opportunity to respond or make
Formally
comment
in the
at the
process,
hearing.
at the hearing.
Right,
But
but
not-
not as a spectator
Right.
interjecting comments at a personal level.
And not ex parte communications
Right.
with email with residents who might be upset.
So the point that I'm getting at here and what I'm trying to make sure it's clear, we need to remain out of this. This is a legal matter. It's absolutely legal matter. And interfering could cause this to end up at the ombudsman's office, and then the city itself could face some other kind of ramifications from our interventions.
We just need to let the process work.
Yeah. Okay, any questions?
Planning commission question.
Yes.
So if we get called from any of the neighbors, do we just refer them to you, or what would you like us to do?
Well, at this point, if the decision's been appealed and the Board of Adjustment's gonna make the determination, and as Ken pointed out, the planning commission has the right to defend their decision at that hearing.
Okay.
So any residents who call you and want to say anything about it, again, I would just refer them to the process and say, you're welcome to attend the meeting where the Board of Adjustment's going to hear this, but I would comment on it other than that.
So there's some specific legal training that's available to the planning commission to help with these kind of things, because there is liability involved for the decisions. Generally speaking, whenever the council is approached that what they're doing is incorrect or that there's going to be a challenge, we immediately back away, cease communication and say, I'm sorry, but you have to have your attorney talk to our attorney. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you guys doing your job. All right. Discussion for the July 7th City Council meeting. will have an update from our victim advocate. We will have a continued public hearing. Are these from tonight's agenda, the two?
Yes.
Okay, item 9A and 9B were the two items that we've continued from tonight. Item C, continued public hearing to consider ordinance 2015-22, amending the compensation schedule for elected officers, statutory officers, and appointed officers of Pleasant Grove City, and providing for an effective date. Dean, is this you?
It's Scott.
It's probably Scott, but I
Yeah.
think you talked about this last week. It's salaries for appointed positions be established by resolution periodically, and there needs to be a public hearing, so.
And our understanding was, other than the 1% COLA and the 1% merit, there were no changes.
Right. So what the ordinance is doing is just establishing new ranges. It's not actually giving anybody an increase at all. It's just bringing the ranges up to what David Larson and Scott have been working on, a market study, and to make it comparable to other cities for similar positions throughout the state and the county. But it's not giving anybody a raise. No one's getting money out of this. It's just, we have to set those rates by an ordinance after public hearing, and ours haven't been done since 2009. And so it's just time to update the range.
Okay, and all of that information is publicly available on the state's website as well as our own.
It should be. I don't personally know if Scott's provided that, but it should be. It's required to be.
Okay, I know the 2009, in that era was publicly available. Kathy, do you know if it's still available on our website?
Do you have the proposed new rate schedule though? Do you have that?
I don't have that. I'm gonna find it.
So
So-
yes,
We probably need to get that on the website, make sure it's on there before next week. Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay. Item D, public hearing to consider for adoption of ordinance amending the Pleasant Grove City Code, section 10-11E-2-7, yard requirements in the downtown village zone regarding historic buildings and single-family lots.
We're going to need to continue that one. We've had review with the applicant, and there's an additional section that we're going to have to add to the actual review for approval, so we'll have to go back to planning commission.
Okay, so you don't have a date on that, just continue. Okay, so it'll just come off of our list. Okay, item E, public hearing to consider for adoption an ordinance amending the Pleasant Grove City Code, section 10-15-36-D, commercial communications applicable statewide, reducing the required 1,000 foot distance between cell towers.
One of the other fun conditional use permit hearings that we've had at the planning commission recently involved Verizon Wireless wanting to do a cell tower at Manila Elementary. And they are still in process of both pursuing an appeal with the Board of Adjustment of the Planning Commission's determination or decision to deny the conditional use at the Manila Elementary. And they are also pursuing an opportunity to co-locate with the Sprint Tower at the Manila Discovery Park, which was our preference, and we have encouraged them to pursue that. By code, we do require co-location where possible. So that they are pursuing that. It looks like that may happen, but they are leaving their doors open for potential need for appealing that. So with that whole process, we looked at the requirement that we have currently in our code that requires a distance of 1,000 feet between cell towers. We had another situation last year where a cell tower was approved up at the high school. It just barely found opportunity to do that adjacent to the recreation center and the ball field, the football field, to be far enough away from the other tower that they have on the north end. We've had difficulties in trying to make this 1,000 feet distance requirement between cell towers work in some instances. And we thought that there are opportunities, as we currently have at the Manila Discovery Park, a cell tower in the place or acting as a second feature of the ball field's lights, that it might be a good idea, rather than requiring this vast distance, that we allow the distance to be much shortened when we have our structures already in place, where co-location for a new cell tower could occur, rather than forcing that random distance requirement.
With respect to the co-location, is there a corresponding requirement for the facility that already has the cell tower to allow co-location?
Yes.
So
So we
then-
found that difficult with Sprint to, force them to be open and willing and working with. And I think there's a channel being opened now, but it's been a challenge. That's why Verizon actually began working with Sprint. And because they were, I think it was Clearwire previously that put the cell tower up, and they were taken over by Sprint, that there was this lack of communication that was going on between them and Verizon. And so there was no approvals or reviews occurring, and Verizon got frustrated, decided, okay, let's look elsewhere. That's why they went to the Manila Elementary option. But as it came forward, we all felt, as well as the planning commission, that that wasn't the best location, that they ought to continue working with Sprint on co-locating at that location.
Sprint just needed to be reminded that there was a requirement for
Yeah.
co-location.
So
Once they were
you're-
reminded of that, they were a lot more open.
So you're anticipating that that's the direction it'll go? Okay. All right, any other questions for Ken or staff on item E? Okay, item 10A, continued item, to consider for adoption of ordinance 2015-21, amending Title 7, Section 3 cemetery regulations. This is the height of the headstones. And where are we at there?
So, met with staff, had a good conversation, with the owner yesterday. Met with staff this morning, and, partially due to my ignorance and not going out and looking at the problem, we recommended at the beginning. And actually doing a few tests on the irrigation system, doing some height measurements on a few headstones. I recommended Tina to come in and strike the height restriction off of that ordinance. So I have to maintain the width and the length due to property rights of other owners out there, but the height restrictions will be removed.
So be able to proceed, and anyone else will be able to proceed without a height requirement.
Yeah, the average headstones out there is about 32 to 38 inches. And we have in section EF and B sections, there's 5 large headstones. And they are impacting irrigation, but with a few minor adjustments and relocating, we can make it work. So I don't see any reason to have that restriction in there.
Thanks, Dion. Appreciate that. Any questions for Dion?
So McKee's been contacted.
I met with him this afternoon at 1 o'clock, trying to go ahead and order his stuff, and he was very excited and ready to move forward, so.
And his main concern was the height, not the width.
Yeah, we're restricted on the width and the length, just due to
The area of
lot
mowing
size,
and just, yeah.
you know, so you can have one person here and another owner here.
Okay.
So those I have to keep in order, but the height we can go ahead and.
Thanks, Dion.
That'll be coming forward next week.
I think that was a good solution.
Yeah. Okay, item 10B, to consider for approval of final plat called Strawberry Creek Villas Plat A, amended on property located at approximately 840 west, 220 south in the Grove Zone, mixed housing subdistrict, senior housing overlay.
Okay, so we have previously approved the plat for the development that's under construction right now in Strawberry Creek Villas. As it was approved, it was kind of a second version of the original proposal, which was to have 76 units on the plat. There was a difficulty with the location of the stream, the waterways that are through that area in the northwest corner. So instead of waiting to get that all figured out, they decided to go forward with a plat that approved 75 units. They have now worked those issues out and would like to add that additional unit, which was according to their first concept, just in the very northwest corner of the property. So it's amending the plat only to add one additional unit so that all buildings will have 4 instead of that one currently planned to have 3.
It's a nice development.
They're turning out nice ones.
Okay, any questions for Ken? All right, item 10C, to consider for approval the final plat for a 1-lot subdivision called Crystal View Estates on property located at approximately 1268 Crystal View Drive in the R120 zone.
So I'll take that. We're actually gonna continue this. item. Part of the property being incorporated into the new lot is existing city right of way, and the state has a minimum 6-week noticing process for us to vacate street right away. So we need to do that.
Okay. I've got an item D with nothing on there. Is there an intended? Okay. And then on 11A, follow-up discussion on moving public works to the pipe plant. And Scott will bring that up, so we'll have a discussion there. All right. There's also on the table, I believe, Scott wanted to cancel the July 14th meeting.
Is that the meeting we're both going to be gone?
I will be gone.
Yeah, I think he wanted to cancel that meeting. I currently, I'm not aware of anything that's scheduled to happen that day.
I'm still here though. Effectively run the meeting, I mean.
Well, actually, I think we should have a
We
meeting
have,
because I could be Scott, you could be.
And I could be the mayor.
We have a bedazzle.
We have the potential. So I don't see why this.
I've got a potential item if we want to do it.
You really, I can create some too. Yeah. I mean, if there's really stuff to discuss, I mean, I'm fine with that, Tina, if you're okay. I mean, if there's really stuff, but if people want to cancel it, then if there's not much to discuss.
I'm not aware of anything that needs to be on that.
There were a
That's
party.
because he crammed it all into this one.
All right, neighborhood and staff business. Anything, Libby?
No, just
And we
waiting.
will probably have an interview this week.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, so I don't get to be mayor at all, I guess, then?
That's up to you, man. You are mayor when I leave, so, hey,
So, okay.
We can
Well,
still do stuff.
from the
I
8th
know.
to the
It's
16th.
just not the same without like sitting.
Call it
in
an
the
emergency meeting, right?
All an executive session, whatever you need to do.
seat. I'm good, give everyone a break.
Ken, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, Dion? Okay. Anything else? No, you're right. Okay, Dave?
Saturday night at dark.
Boom.
Boom.
Stadium on fire.
I am having the shooters set up the first shots for you.
Thanks.
So if you're interested, we'll turn you out. We'll send you up there and you can face the dragon.
Thank you. Fun. Okay.
What does that mean?
Dave, I sent you an email, if you guys wanted to have a truck at tomorrow night's fireworks. It's up to you, just in case we burn the field down, we'd be there faster.
So this is what we're going to do is we will officially stage in the area to just view the festivities,
Just in case.
as opposed to necessarily a sign, something there. Because the reason for that is, in certain cases, we charge for our services.
Oh, okay, well, we're happy to pay.
So
I mean, I don't wanna,
we'll just put them up in the area. And they'll just be there.
thank you. Okay. Mike?
I was just gonna let the council know that our affiliation with the Utah Attorney General's Office for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, that we were awarded $20,000 grant this year to continue our efforts in internet crimes against children.
Wow.
that something that happens every year, Mike?
What's that?
Is that a new grant or does that happen every year?
Well, it's a competitive grant, so yeah, it's on a year basis, but every year you have to reapply. And $20,000 is the highest award. And they have, our architects have just done an amazing job in that program. And they have a lot of,
And what happens with that money that just goes towards, is that staffing or what does that go towards for
It can
the?
be used for, the grant is pretty wide, anything that can be used to further investigate crimes against children. So it can be used for overtime. A lot of the cases they require a lot of overtime work to track down the predators. It can be used for equipment, for computers, for programs, you name it, just anything that furthers that work. And if you guys have an interest in it, we have a room set up that over at the PD that equipment, that's all that happens in there.
I'd be interested in that.
So some pretty sophisticated and impressive software equipment.
Oh, that's awesome.
And congratulations on the coverage with the Mountain Lion. International, is that what we understood?
Yeah,
Are you serious?
There are some cougar lovers out there.
I think we should say Mountain
I don't
Lion.
think the way you think.
I'm not that old, Mike.
Anything else? Ben?
Mayor, I'm afraid that some people didn't understand what I mentioned on Saturday night at dark. It's the fireworks show over the junior high school. So for those that are trying to figure out just what we were talking about.
I guess.
it's
No, it was
fireworks
facing
show.
the dragon. But what were you talking about, like the mayor's gonna be in the eye of the dragon, what is that?
Oh, you've never shot off a firework, have you?
No. What are you talking about?
They
Never been
said,
to war.
would you like to join me on that? How many of you think Sid should join?
I would love to.
I'll make sure we've got turnouts for you too then.
Need a big turnout and a tiny turnout.
Let's do it. I mean, if it is part of Mayor Pro Tem's responsibilities, then.
Make sure you bring your gal.
Are you, you want to be deaf?
Oh,
Can you make sure her turnout's out, bedazzled?
awesome, thank you.
Sherry, anything?
Well, I just got a grant for garbage cans in the Murdoch Canal.
I do really know.
That was fast.
I wouldn't doubt it.
No, I did not get garbage cans. I did just come back yesterday from a conference in San Francisco, and that was quite the place to be this last weekend. Yeah. ALA, American Library Association Conference. And the restrooms, about half of the restrooms had signs that said, all genders restroom, everyone is welcome.
Lovely.
Okay.
But I learned a lot, got a lot of good ideas, so more to come.
Where are we at with the grant for the elevator?
That, I got an email saying the money is tied up until October and I can't do a thing
Oh,
until
really?
they release it. I can't even hire an architect, so.
Is that a federal?
We're
hold
delayed.
or
Federal.
Federal?
But I mean, still, as far as we
Still
know, go,
going.
but just delay a little bit. Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Thanks. Anything else, Sherry? Okay, Keen? Nothing? Tina?
Holding down the fort.
Yes, you are.
Good job, Tina.
Thank you. Megan? Okay. Kathy?
Kathy, I have something for Kathy. Okay, so the voter pamphlet that's gonna go out on July 13th. I'm wondering, and maybe Sherry, this is for you too, and I texted you about this. About doing a meet and greet at the library. I've had a couple residents ask me because they look forward to this each election, and sometimes it's their only opportunity to come out and meet the candidates face to face. I'm wondering if we can schedule that and put it in the voter information pamphlet, because I know we've missed the newsletter for July, and probably gonna be, we wanna try and get it before early voting, which is July 28th. So I'm wondering if the voter information pamphlet goes out the 13th, if we could have that sometime between the 13th and when early voting starts on the 28th. Usually it's in the basement of the library. And Sherry, I don't know, obviously you haven't hosted one since you haven't been here since the last election, but that's something that I think residents look forward to, and I'm just wondering how we feel about hosting that again at the library, if there's a different location that we want to have, but also including that in the voter information pamphlet. Since it
The
did
trick
make
is
it.
getting a hold of everybody to make sure the schedule works.
You mean the candidates?
Well, the historic is, it's sponsored by some organization, right?
No, it's the
It's-
city.
it's- it's-
Mhm. The city sponsors it.
Oh, the city's never sponsored. No, they don't.
Oh,
So,
it's like the
in the
library
past,
board or
it's
the
been the
library
library
board.
board.
Okay,
It's not.
okay.
Carolyn said that in the past candidates have said they just book the room and schedule it themselves.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's happened, different
I
organizations have done it.
I think the library board in Kiwanis have paired up on multiple ones of them. And so that might be where you go and get them to organize.
We're just kind of short now.
Well, I know.
We'll work it out.
Kathy, what are your feelings or thoughts?
Well, she doesn't organize, she's never organized.
We just give you the date and you put it in the, and is that possible still for it to go out in the voter information template? What's the deadline to get you the date?
Well, I need to get it to the printers like this week so they can look at it to make sure it's okay.
How many people are we
If you want it to go out the
talking
week of
about?
the 13th.
There's, I think there's, I mean, last time I went, it was a pretty good turnout.
Yeah, how many people can fit?
Oh,
And Carolyn said it's really better if you do it in two groups, if it's too many.
well, if we need to move it to the rec center or a different
What,
location.
Two groups, what do you mean two groups?
Two groups of candidates, 3 and 3 or.
We've
What
never
night
split
do
them
you
up.
usually have
We've
this?
never split them up.
I'm obviously not Tuesday.
Well, what if you had it on a Sunday night and we opened up theater number 1 at the Water Gardens? And then you could host 218 people, plus your, all your candidates. It's up to you. I mean, if you're looking for a place, anyway, I'll let you guys think about that.
Okay.
We can easily get done on the website. She can get her stuff out.
Okay. Anything else, Johnny? Eric? Okay. Ben?
Good.
Sid?
Thanks to Greg for answering my questions. They've been doing a great job. People have had the water pressure because the water has been being used like crazy. And Greg and the staff has just been trying to balance the system and figure out why and how, and, so that's been a challenge, I know, so.
Just about a quick area.
It's just kind of, there's just different areas kind of up on the bench that are being affected, and so, I think his crew's been doing a great job, and I'm a night owl, and I forget that I text people like at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And so, I already got one of those texts last night, and I felt bad about it, but welcome to.
Not really, though.
Not really. And then just kind of a funny, thing, as I was heading out tonight, I was in a car with some 12-year-old boys, my son and his friends taking down the pool. And I heard my son as I get in the car, he's like, sometimes I don't even see her at council night until I'm asleep by the time she gets home. And he goes, sometimes it's midnight. And the boy behind goes, so it's like a 6-hour book club. I'm like, yeah, you can say that.
So his mother must go to the book.
She doesn't go to book club for long hours, but or bunko or something. So anyway, I just thought that was funny from TV or a boy's perspective on where I am and what I'm doing, a 6-hour book club. So
The question is why they still up at midnight.
well, he's asleep, but he just knows when the next morning when I tell him that it was we make sure he's in bed.
Anything else, Sid? Okay, Cindy? Nothing? Okay, no plats?
Oh, yes, there is.
We do?
Sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll sign the plat. Looking at the calendar, remembering we have city offices will be closed on Friday. And then we have the fireworks
The
at
library
junior
will be
high.
open.
Library.